I'll call to order this Tuesday, June 9th meeting of the Fairfield Plan and Zoning Commission. We'll begin with our meeting minutes from June 6th. Please have a motion on the item. Commissioner Levy.
Move to approve.
Levy moves to approve. Do I have a second? Capozzi seconds.
They look to be in order to me.
Thank you. Anything further?
Nope, nothing further.
Any other comments or questions? Commissioner Monahan.
You know, when I read the minutes, I just don't think they accurately reflect what's actually being discussed in a lot of these meetings. So while I agree that the minutes are the minutes, I don't believe they reflect the communication during the meetings.
You have a proposed edit?
No, I mean, you know, we went back and forth on many topics, and, you know, this doesn't, you know, reading these minutes when I've been on, you know, other commissions in the past, boards in the past, they've been much more detailed in terms of actually what was discussed. This is just, you know, very cut and dry. So, you know, while they're minutes, this is how it's done on this commission. I don't think it actually reflects the discussion on these topics. That's all.
Okay. Other comments? All those in favor of motion to approve the June 6th meeting minutes, please raise your hand. Okay, motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Next is 250 Pequot Avenue, a request by Summit Southport LLC for review of a two-family property of off-site below market rate units in lieu of two on-site units at the condominium development for section 31.7.J.1. Good evening, Attorney Russo.
Chair, members of the commission, Chris Russo with Russo and Rizzio LLC, offices at 10 Sasko Hill Road in Fairfield. Here back again on seeking units in lieu of the two units at 250 Pequot Avenue. I don't mean to just keep showing up here every week, though I am here almost every meeting. I think though this property I'm going to be discussing, when it presented itself, and it was an opportunity that addressed one of the main concerns from the prior submissions, I believe, which was location. So 43 Pease Avenue is located in Southport. So, you know, as 250 Pequot Avenue is in Southport, you can see right here, that's, I've drew some lines here. I'll go through what that is, but you can see its location there, right near Post Road, obviously. And it's located within 1,500 feet. 1,416 feet. So it's located within 1,500 feet of 250 Pequot Ave. Has tremendous access to I-95 in the Post Road. I know you know the area. There's a lot of stores, restaurants, and services that are in close proximity. It's also within 1,500 feet of the Southport train station. This property, John, I can share you want me to share it or?
I got it.
Okay. We prepared a little presentation deck. Okay. It's 43 Pease Avenue, is located in Southport again. It contains 4 bedrooms. So it equals the number of bedrooms that are being provided by the 2 units at 250 Pequot. Each unit has a bathroom. The entire building has approximately, as you can see there, 1,746 square feet of living area. It breaks down to 875 square feet per unit, basically. That's less square footage than the units at 250 Pequot. If you remember, those units average, there's a range, but they average around 2,000 square feet. But we are providing the same number of bedrooms, just on square footage. But the thing I would note on that slide, and it's fine that you changed, is if you look at the lot size, it's 0.23 acres. And I think that's important because, you know, one thing I didn't discuss as much when I was here on the Ardmore piece a few weeks ago, and it's the same thing here, is, you know, yes, the units aren't the same size as 250 Pequot, but there's outdoor space. And I think with fencing, particularly this being a 2-family, I think we can make it so the yard is pretty exclusive for each owner, which I think is, a huge benefit. You can set up a grill where you want, you can set up your kids' playground. It's personal and private space, which is a huge benefit, which, 250 Pequot has amenities too. But I think, it's a nice amenity to have your own personal yard space. So it's smaller on size on the inside, but it gives you this added benefit of having, yard space. Each unit has its own kitchen, bathroom, and washer dryer. They each have a separate entrance. You can see the 2 doors there in the front. That's just a slide showing the proximity to nearby amenities that I went through. They're divided by floor. So the first floor is 1 unit, and then the rest is the second unit on top. There's some, John, if you just flip through a couple of the slides, there's some pictures of the existing conditions. You see kitchen there, living room, bedroom, bathroom, the outside, and the rear of the dwelling. So if you just stay on here for a sec, these are the planned improvements. We plan on putting an extensive amount of work into this property. We estimate the cost to be $200,000 to $250,000 for improving this property. They're listed there, but just to go through the scope of work, includes replacing the exterior doors and locks, installing new flooring throughout the building, new cabinets and countertops in the kitchens, new vanities in all the bathrooms, the replacement of tubs and the tile in all the bathrooms, a full interior and exterior paint job, and new LED lighting throughout, and installing new landscaping, and just a general refresh of the exterior. John, if you just would go through the next remaining slides. Yeah, that's, sorry, the one before was, what we're looking to do as far as installing landscaping and rehabbing the outside. Next slide, again, rehab to the outside, improving the landscaping there to create a nice space. Kitchen, new countertops, new cabinets. And then I don't know if there's another one. Is that it? Yeah, that's it. Okay. So again, looking to really upgrade the quality of these units. Regarding HEV points, so I know we've been over this before, but 250 Pequot provides 2 affordable units at 80% AMI, which would grant the town a total of 2 HEV points. Under this proposed offsite plan, our intent is to rent them to families that make no more than 60% of AMI. So dropping down from the 80% to the 60%. Each of those units would earn 2 HEV points. So for a total of 4 HEV points. So the town would double the number of points it receives from these 2 affordable units. So again, I think this location addresses a significant concern that this commission had on other options, as these units are in Southport proper. It's the same number of bedrooms as 250 Pequot. It's smaller as far as unit size, but again, I think we have to take into account that there's outdoor space here that is not present at 250 Pequot Avenue. And there's going to be a significant investment to upgrading the dwelling, and it would double the HEV points. I know Commissioner Levy, we talked last time when we were discussing Ardmore. You posed the question of, was this really providing a value, because Ardmore was in one of the more affordable parts of town, and Southport not nearly as affordable on one hand, but on what's probably the more important point is there's really just not a lot of units for rent in Southport. I did a look on Zillow. There's a couple of rentals that were just straight up houses, just single family houses. And they were, one was 8,500 a month for a single family, 5,100 for another month for another single family. So not only is the rent way more for a 2-bedroom for 60% of AMI, the rent is $2,117 a month, is what I found on the state's website. And, so it's less rent wise, but I also just think if you look for rentals in Southport, there's just not a lot there that's available. So I think we're addressing two needs with this proposal. I had a lot of the arguments previously with my priors, and I know we have a big agenda, so I don't think I need to rehash those, but I think this is a good opportunity to provide these 2 units in Southport. So be happy to answer any questions.
Yeah. Why are we discussing lease when when the project is a for sale project?
So because it's rental, it would grant the town more HUE points. It certainly could be converted to do condos. I'm presenting to you it being for rent just because it would grant more points, but we would be open to if you'd rather have it be for sale, and we could drop the AMI so you would get some increase in points.
Yeah, I think you know where I'm coming from, and this isn't even close. Before you get me to exercise any discretion. As far as I'm concerned, currently your client's obligated to sell 2 units, each worth about $2 million, and sell them for roughly, probably combined about $500,000. Why this commission would even consider this property is appraised by the town at 746. Even if you put 250 into it, it's $1 million. Why we'd accept $1 million in lieu of a $4 million obligation that your client already has is absolutely beyond me. In terms of comparability, I don't think there's any comparable. They are not at all comparable. 2 brand new 2,000-foot units on Pequot Avenue, walking distance to the center of Southport, as compared to a duplex built in 1914, which while you would be renovating, it is still 112 years old and is in walking distance to the Shell station and the
Southport Diner,
Oh,
which my kids would contest you on. That's a good,
it is good.
proximity.
I'd rather walk to the market right on the
I
corner
got
than
you.
Southport.
Yeah.
What else? They're also half the size. And again, I know your client's challenged by math, but I mean, if you were to throw in 2 million on top of this, 2.5 million, it might be something I would consider. But short of that, there's no way I would exercise my discretion to consider this. My suggestion is before you come back with anything else, you give thought to how you're going to prepare the condominium documents and the bylaws, which would allow the sale of these 2 units such that
At Peace
the
Avenue or
no.
at 252.
At 250, you got to sell them, right? There's no, it's a for sale.
Oh yeah, it's for sale. Yeah,
So
you
you
have to
got
sell.
to figure out how to sell 2 units and still have the monthly expenses meet the guidelines for 830G. And the only way that can be done is if you're prepared to cap the condominium charges for those 2 units, which will have to be done for 40 years. And you're going to have to disclose that to the other 16 units. Okay, that's where you need to focus your time. Unless you want to come up with something that is comparable, this isn't even close.
Yeah, I wanted to present it to the commission because it was our first in Southport, and I know that was valued in showing that, and we've had this conversation on each one. I know your position on it. I think there's a lot of benefits to this property. I think rental is valuable in Southport, but we would be open to, we could easily turn this into a condo. It would just, the town would not get as many HUE points with that.
And, with the rental, it eventually reverts to your client unless you're turning it over to the town. Who would be owning the property?
Right, he would be owning the property because Habitat won't accept rentals. If we switched it to for sale, then we could engage Habitat about conveying it to them.
Or
It's certainly something I'm willing to explore with them because we've had conversations.
We're wasting time because that's not even close still, but.
And the only other
go
thing too,
forward, you'd have to sell it to the two people that qualify.
you'd have to sell it to two people who qualify.
Right.
And but the other thing I just wanted to know, Commissioner Levy, you said that you cited the town's value of the property, but my understanding is for 1.2 million would be for the purchase of this property, and then 250,000 for the renovations.
Still 2.5 million shy of what the two units at Pequot are.
But I don't have my client here for the math this time, so
Yeah.
we can avoid.
Don't worry about it.
We can avoid that one.
We won't waste time. Thank you.
Commissioner Braun,
I'm
go
done.
Is this more living area? Because I'm looking at the vision appraisal of tax assessors information. The whole gross area is 3880, but the living area is of
1746.
1740. So is that bigger or smaller than the one we looked at last time up on
If I remember, there was three, because there was three there. I think one of the units might have been smaller than this, but I think the other two were slightly bigger.
So I guess we passed a regulation a year ago that can never be used. That's what it sounds like, because we passed it for a reason. Because it's very difficult to do ownership affordable. It's almost impossible. You'd have to ask other unit owners to subsidize the other ones. I don't see that working. I've been living in a condo. Nobody wants to spend a dime extra. I don't care how rich you are, whatever. No one wants to spend a dime extra. So I don't see us ever being able to do it. So might as well just give up on the regulation. But our regulation had nothing to do with money or location. It had to do with size. So this is a little smaller, but it does have the outdoor space, which I find great. Last time people were complaining because it was not in the right location. It was on Southport. We need more affordable in Southport. You know, 8-30G does not say anything about where in the town affordable needs to go. Okay, so we're adding layers on what the legal requirements are for both our own regulation and 8-30G. So you offered us 7 points last time. That was rejected because it was in the wrong location and it wasn't worth enough money. Now it's being rejected because it's in the right location, but it's not worth enough money and we want ownership. So I don't know how we're ever going to have our regulation be functional because we passed it for the very reason that we're talking about here today, that no one's going to be able to do something at Pequot. No one at Pequot wants to subsidize somebody else to go live there, and subsidize their common charges. So I think I'm in the minority here.
Commissioner Libby.
Yeah. We passed the regulation because it gave us absolute and total discretion. And that was the only reason I voted for it. And in terms of whether it could work or not, there's been many studies showing that having people of various economic stations living together is actually beneficial to all groups. And I think if we're disclosed in advance, people that are paying anywhere from 2 to 3 million for a unit, recognizing that they would have to pay maybe an extra $1,000 a year, might consider that as a reasonable contribution to promoting affordable housing in the town of Fairfield. So so it can definitely work. It's just a question of you coming up with the appropriate bylaws and affordability plan, which we'll need to sign off on before you get your CO, that we can approve, right?
Right, but
And that will
there's no
include-
requirement under that. And the other thing I will say,
Regulations say that they apply to common charge.
but in calculating the sale price, which is a one-time payment,
Mhm.
it's very different than a rental where that's constantly adjusted. And that, I think, is the danger for the for sale units.
Well, it's not a problem if you have appropriate safeguards. You'll note that Westway, those sold for like $250 and $350, and those are $2 million units. And we have a rough estimate from Mr. Barnhart that's in the file, so it can certainly be done. It's and I'm
It still doesn't address the issue of special assessments and things like that.
but that can be included. You just got to put it in your bylaws. Just got to provide for it.
But that would not be accounted for at the time of sale.
We can argue about that later, but I don't see why it couldn't be.
Commissioner.
How would you know? How would you know?
Or you can't.
Do I have a chance to speak here?
Go ahead.
Okay, so let's keep this simple. You can make the math work. It's spurious to suggest that you can't make the common charges work when you set up a condominium. So let's just not even talk about that. That's preposterous. but the fundamental difference is that what's being offered is a 1,750-foot living space for 2 units versus approximately 4,000 square feet. That's not equivalent. It's in Southport, yes, that's good. But the size of it and the quality of it do not compare. So yes, you're better in terms of the location, moving in the right direction, but it's less than half the size of the units that you're supposed to be providing over in Pequot. And it's certainly a far cry from the quality. And the images you show didn't really seem, they seem cosmetic at best. So you're supposed to offer equivalency, you haven't. And when you suggest you can't make the common charges work, that is you need a new accountant, okay? Because you can absolutely make that work. So I don't buy that argument at all. This is not, I think it's a step in the right direction. You're in the right neighborhood, but you're offering 1,750 square feet versus 4,000 square feet. Last time you offered 2,870 square feet instead of 4,000 square feet. We rejected that. So I just want to emphasize again, you need to offer something that's equivalent. And the location is acceptable. It's good, but the size and the quality are not.
Commissioner Monahan, let me speak first.
Through you, Chairman, to Commissioner Randolph. How do you propose the common charges would be addressed in the current building when you say they won't be able to work? And it's scurrilous for him to say that. Can you kind of just expand on that so I can understand your thinking?
Okay, I'll try to keep it simple. Common charges are operating expenses, correct? They're operating expenses. So operating expenses can then be allocated according to pro rata sizes or allocations per unit. So a 4-bedroom would have a higher proportion of operating expenses than a 1-bedroom. Just like, and then a subsidized unit would have a lower pro rata amount than because it's subsidized. So we can go into the accounting of it, but it's a simple exercise. It's just an operating expense allocation, and to suggest this can't work, it reflects either I think it's willful obtuseness, because it can absolutely work. I don't buy that argument at all.
All right, Commissioner Monahan.
But to be clear, you're asking the other residents to pay for current and future carrying costs for the subsidized units. That's a very clear.
Yes, just as their initial purchase of the unit pays for, it subsidizes the initial purchase of the unit for the subsidized locations. It's exactly the same principle.
So you're asking, to be clear, you're asking the current residents who buy into the building to pay for the current and future carrying costs for the subsidized units. That's a big distinction.
In exactly the same way, it's exactly the same thing as for a rental unit. A rental unit occupant pays a higher rent, and they carry the rent for the subsidized units. It's exactly the same thing. It's no different.
So Commissioner Randolph, let me ask you on that, just so you help with some clarification. Let's say the building goes and it's 3 years into being in effect, and it's determined that something needs to be improved on the property. There's an issue with the roof that needs to be addressed. The gates need to be upgraded, or there's something with the property that's going to require a special assessment. How would you handle that?
Chairman Crissillo, is this? Can I have to say point of order? This is not. I don't want to give one.
I'm just trying to understand, because the argument I'm making, and it's being told that's basically a nonsensical argument, is if something comes along and this association decides, hey, we need to make $100,000 improvement to this property because something with the roof. Then that was not. I'll give you the short answer. Go look at how a co-op in New York City is set up. That will be your model for cost allocation. And I don't want to waste this commission's time
explaining this to you. We don't have, we got limited amount of time.
I think
Yeah.
we've had 4 commissioners speak so far. I mean, I think there's any, before, back to you, just any other commissioner. Go ahead.
In terms of, in terms of the prior option, I voted for that because I agreed with Commissioner Braun's assessment that the state law seems to favor rental units over for sale units under 830G based on the allocation of HUE points. I would like to say that I do, excuse me, appreciate you and your clients' willingness to work with us and with the town planners in good faith on this. I do agree with my fellow commissioners that this particular option, I don't think goes far enough. But I would, and because this is somebody working with us in good faith, and because this is something that's never been done before, I'm of the opinion that sometimes you have to try something to see what works and what doesn't, and this is a limited number of units. Excuse me, I don't think that this option, again, is the right one. But I would encourage us all to think about, what does 830G ask for? What does it prioritize? And how do we use the law to protect Fairfield and to continue to maintain our moratorium for years to come?
Commissioner Braun.
Yeah, so I agree with what Commissioner Capozzi just said. Also, I think our commission seems to be, members of our commission seem to be rejecting the regulation we passed for this very purpose. So forcing you to go back and not use the regulation we passed to allow you to have offsite below market rent defeats the purpose of having the regulation. Making you do common charge, it doesn't make sense. Not only that, I do not believe common charges are the same as rent. You can charge rent that the market will bear, and you can change it every year or every time a lease ends. Common charges are baked in, and they need to be done when work needs to be done. End of story. They put a new boiler, talk to Success Village, okay? They had a massive problem there because they didn't do what they were supposed to do. So you can't just modify that based on market rates or who's paying for what. So this being a high-end complex, they're going to need a lot of much more expensive things. That is not variable like rent might be. So I don't think it's comparable at all. I don't think it's the same at all. But more importantly, why do we pass a regulation if we want you to go back and not use the regulation? We passed it because it's very difficult to have on-site affordable for multifamily. That's why we passed a regulation allowing off-site. So maybe this needs to be buffed up a little, maybe make it more expensive, bigger. That's a valid criticism. But I think it's fine because you're getting us 4 points that we need. And it comes much quicker than if you had to build a whole new structure. So I kind of like the other one that was 7 points, but if this is a better neighborhood, 4 points. I think we have to stop throwing roadblocks in the way of following our own regulations.
Attorney Russo, I'll just say, I appreciate, there was some of the direction, not all of it, but some of it was based on location. So I appreciate your client accommodating on the location piece of this. I agree, this isn't with commissioners who said this isn't it, but in the right direction. On the broader issue of this regulation, I just want to be clear, and again, I'll refer back to the letter that Mr. Bosch had submitted, which went through in extensive detail. And this is not really for you because you acknowledged in the last meeting that it is up to the complete discretion of the commission. It was not intended to encourage this type of arrangement. I think it was adopted with some reluctance, but with the ultimate understanding that because it is up to the sole discretion of the commission, we have the ability to hold any proposed arrangement to a high standard. And so I don't buy into the argument that what's the point of having this regulation if we're not going to use it? The point was never to use it often. It may be that the project that the full commission would accept is, you know, one of those unicorns that who knows if and when it'll come along, right? And but having a regulation that allows us to accept a proposal at our full discretion gives us the ability to hold it to that high standard. And again, I appreciate the search for a property that was that met the criteria from the location consideration, but there are other considerations too, and I don't think this property meets the others.
No, look, I appreciate the feedback. I feel like I'm honing it. I'm getting, we've gone through the range of factors. I'm honing in.
I think you have. I think you've heard from enough from the commission to have just. I think you're
Yes.
getting a sense of.
Well, look,
generally where folks stand.
if a 4,000 square foot 2-unit in a 2-bedroom in Southport shows up, my client will be all over that. But I don't know if we're gonna get that unicorn, but I do think we've now done the range, and I think there may be some options. So I think I'm gonna be back to you, Brian, which sorry
Yeah.
about that, but yeah, I've gotten the feedback.
And let me just let Commissioner
Yeah.
Delgado chime in.
Because we're been asked to consider is a rental offsite. I don't have all the history on the original approval
Mhm.
or the adoption of the regulation. Like, would your client consider rental on site?
I don't think we could do that under the current. I just don't think that would be rental. You mean the 250 peak watt units? I don't even know if the affordable for that stated that. Because it was just it was intended to be for sale.
That would,
I have to look back on it. It's not a question I was anticipating. I'd have to look back. My initial reaction was no, just because it was always anticipated that 250 peak watt would be for sale.
Thanks, Attorney Russo.
Thank you.
All right, we have two applications to recommend to a public hearing. The first is I'll call them both together. First is 1173 North Benson Road. Special exception application, request for Fairfield University for a new campus building, innovation hall for science and engineering studies in a residence R3 zone. And 1173 North Benson Road, a special exception application, request of Fairfield. Can I please have a motion on these items? Commissioner Braun?
Move to recommend for public hearing.
Thank you, Commissioner Braun, to recommend to public hearing. Do I have a second? Commissioner Posey seconds. All those in favor of the motion to recommend the two items to public hearing, please raise your hand. Your motion's passed. Motion passes unanimously. We'll move. Yes.
Can you just make the announcement about the item that was withdrawn?
Yeah, thank you. So we do have an item that was scheduled. It's actually last on our agenda. It's a public hearing. It was for 354 Pequot Avenue. In case anyone is here in person or online for that, the applicant has withdrawn the application, so we will not be hearing that item tonight. The application itself has been withdrawn. So 354 Avenue again will not be heard tonight. Commissioner Monahan.
Is it then permanently withdrawn or temporarily withdrawn?
It's been fully withdrawn.
As far as we know, I mean, I don't know if permanent in the sense that we wouldn't, it's not precluded from being resubmitted, but it's just been withdrawn. We will turn to our pre-application review for 160 and 219 Ash Creek Boulevard, a request of Amzac Fairfield Property Owner LLC for a non-binding pre-application review of a proposed transit-oriented development park, mixed-use development project with provision of Commerce Drive District Area, designed industrial district zone. This you also.
This is me. Okay. Chair, members of the commission, Chris Russo, with Russo and Rizzio LLC, offices at 10 Sasko Hill Road, here on behalf of the pre-applicant. Sure, we all have some familiarity with this property. Tonight's a pre-application review only. We're not asking for any type of decision on this. It's obviously a large property and a big project. So we wanted to get your feedback on our conceptual plans, thoughts, concerns, what information you'd like to see, so we can then turn to getting that info and start preparing a submission. I'm going to go through a very mercifully brief intro so we can get to the meat and potatoes and have our team go through their plans. We have Anzac Capital Management, who is the applicant, Michael Lawson from Minnewaska Architects, Dave Lusberg is from Arterial, and we have folks from Land Tech as well who help prepare these site plans here with us, and they're all going to run through their plans. Just so you know, just a little brief description. Total site area is slightly over 24 acres. This is located on the south side of the metro station. It abuts the parking area to the metro station. It currently contains, there's one existing residential building which has 71 dwelling units. It's part of a prior approval. These parcels are located within the designed industrial district. It's funny here, I am again on an industrial piece. And you know, I was thinking to myself, there's a lot of Fairfielders who just don't realize what this area used to be like. Just like some of the other industrial properties I've been here recently with. You know, as I was preparing for tonight, I came across photos of the Handy and Harmon building, 81 Black Rock Turnpike. And it's really, you know, this area, it's been an incredible transformation where you have Whole Foods, CVS, you know, Esh, you know, which is such a popular restaurant, Sally's, Illicit Brewery, and just reviewing these presentation decks that we're going to be going through, seeing a creek walk, you know, someone bird watching from, and some of the ideas that we have from a landscaping design and from the building and space. It's just a, you know, such a transformation if you knew what this area used to be like. So for our design and standards, we used the Section 8 Transportation Commercial Park standards. There's a slide we'll go through. You know, what we're proposing is some of the standards. I know that this commission last week was talking about Commerce Drive area design district and kind of doing a meld there with that. But again, I think we're in line with your standards, and we'll go through that. Regard to the history of this site as far as land use approvals, back in 2009, it was going to be 8 office buildings. Then there was an approval that was obtained for slightly over 350 residential units with a hotel. I believe there's 801 parking spaces. There was a submission a couple years ago, it was made to WPCA. There was a pre-app to this commission for 674 apartments, a hotel, restaurant, and office. So we're now coming forward with a revised mixed-use development. Again, we have a great team with some exciting ideas that, you know, I think will not only provide an site, but the surrounding neighborhood and Fairfield residents as well. So with that, I'll turn it over to Michael Lawson to go through the plans.
Thank you so much. And I really appreciate you having us all here. My name is Michael Lawson. I'm a principal at Minot and Wasco Architects and Planners. I'm an architect and urban planner, and we specialize in these kinds of redevelopment areas throughout the Northeast. And this is especially exciting because of the TOD nature of this site, how we're reactivating a new neighborhood for Fairfield, and how we're creating a sense of place that really has not been here for some time. So we're excited to be here and illustrate this for you. This is an overall map, as Attorney Russo said, essentially locating us in your town along the Metro North Railroad, as well as at the Fairfield Black Rock train station, and along the Ash Creek and Ash Creek Boulevard, as you can see on the site map. On this site, we propose to create a neighborhood with tactile materials and textures that come together in a beautiful palette. We blend the concrete walls of the existing site with the natural landscape and contemporary architecture that we're defining. The new streetscapes, creek walk, and public plazas and parks foster a vibrant new neighborhood for Fairfield. And we're excited to bring this for you. You can see on this slide, we have different theme imagery of what these materials will do combining together, what the natural landscapes will do as it integrates into this new neighborhood, and how we're infusing artwork into the overall ideas. And our landscape architect, Dave Lusberg, will talk more about that. One of the things that we really wanted to do on site was to break down the massing through material changes, stepping of the building, bay windows, balconies, and other architectural moves that define the spaces created between the new buildings. And that's one of the things that was really important, was not only designing the buildings themselves, but what happens in between them. And we'll get into further how that interacts together. As we looked at this site, one of the things that was most compelling was how the site section worked. And I opened with this site section to convey to you the somewhat challenge we had. If you've ever been to the site, Ash Creek Boulevard is very high. It's about 25 to 30 feet higher than the creek itself in the developable area that we're able to look at here. And you can see that in this cross section, how on the top here, this is the level of Ash Creek Boulevard, and the building now steps into the grade, hiding the parking, putting the residential areas above, and really processing down the grade to the creek in a really great way. The building is built into the site, as I alluded to, allowing for an elegant procession down to the creek and a lively new streetscape to be designed with residential stoops, lobby, and amenity entries. The building steps with the proposed grading and conforms with the building height regulations of the current zoning. You will see how this occurs in the floor plans that will be presented next. So as I go through the floor plans very quickly, you'll notice that we've whited out different areas. That's actually the area that is below grade, so that you can see how the building uses the grade to hide the parking areas, the utility areas, while also providing for stoops and residential activity on the ground plane as we work through the site. So this is the basement plan, but the first floor plan. And here you'll see that we're providing parking on these areas. And as I was talking about here, this white area is actually much higher than this floor plan. And what happens is that the center spine comes down and the lowest point here meets the creek and meets that creek walk that Dave will be talking about a little later. Along the creek, we wanted to enliven that area. And what we did here was we added residential stoops and different architectural elements to allow for people as they walk along the creek and as they walk along the new streetscape that we're creating. It creates a dynamic architectural language. On these lower levels, we're shielding the parking with the grading and residential units. You can see the yellow is the residential units here. The parking areas are exposed that are exposed to the creek will be clad in similar materials and include residential language. As we go up the site, again, you'll see that white area is actually above us. But here you can really get a sense of how we're coming into the site and creating that new streetscape in the center of the three buildings that are being created on this one side. And one of the things that we did here was we wanted to create a gateway area. And that gateway area is this roundabout that is flanked by two lobby amenity entrances for both building 1 and building 2. Building 1 being the building that's located nearest to the creek, and building 2 being located further inward of the site next to the railroad tracks. You can also see the existing residential building that has the 71 dwelling units, as well as you're starting to see the proposed retail that's happening on this section of the site and a hotel and conference area that's located on the opposite side of Ash Creek Boulevard. That's similar to some of the proposals that you've seen in the past on the site. The buildings that are oriented along Ash Creek Boulevard and the internal new street provide for a welcoming experience. And residential lobby and amenities receive residents at the central roundabout gateway, allowing for easy access, drop-offs, and deliveries to occur on-site rather than on Ash Creek Boulevard. I share with you some of the theme imagery we have of similar projects that we've designed with AMZAC as well as with other clients. And this really illustrates the level of design that we're proposing for this site. These amenities will include lobby spaces, of course, that have package, mail, and co-working areas, lounge areas, as well as fitness areas, private dining rooms, and club rooms. All of these create a sense of community for the residents within the larger context of the site. So one of the defining features of the shape of the buildings are that they are created around several courtyards. And each of these courtyards will have exterior amenity decks that include pools, cabana areas, fire pits, relaxation lawns, and other programming. And you can see some of the theme images that we've conveyed here. These will be some of the things that we expect in these courtyards. These will be for the residents of these specific buildings. And we feel as though they really enhance the overall experience for those residents. One of the things that we did in terms of locating different pieces of the site on different programs is that we looked at where the parking garage really wanted to be on site. And we located that along the train tracks. There are certain reasons why we did that. One is to shield the units from the noise that a train creates. But also we wanted to orient all the views and potential views towards the creek and towards the natural environment that is around the site. And some of the things that we did is that in here you can see that we've actually faceted the building in a way that allows for views from those residential units along this streetscape that we're creating can go and point towards the natural landscape of the creek down at the end of the viewpoint. You'll see on these upper level floors as I click through here that these all have residential units that stack up. That's the way these types of buildings work. And they have a variety of studios, 1s, 2s, and 3-bedroom units. And I'll get into the overall averages in a moment. As we get to the top floor, here we are proposing several step backs. Step backs being areas where the building pushes back on that top floor and allows for a recess so that you have a cornice line that is much lower than the top of the building. On this top floor, we've also provided an amenity roof deck that takes advantage of the views, hopefully towards Long Island Sound and towards the Ash Creek. You can see that located right here. So that leads us to some of the theme imagery that I wanted to present today in terms of the overall aesthetic that we're proposing for this new neighborhood here in Fairfield. We created a contemporary architecture that defines this new neighborhood. These are some precedent imagery of buildings we feel combine the modern aesthetic of a white and black building with warm wood tones and large fenestration and glazing. The scale of these buildings has been broken down further through architectural variations and changes of plane. And those things are things that we brought into the architecture that we created for this site specifically. So this leads us to some concept imagery of the architecture that we're proposing for the site. And these are early images of kind of to get the feel of what we're proposing in terms of this new streetscape, how the building interacts with that streetscape, and how we're combining different architectural elements onto the facade to break down the massing. So the design includes a series of faceted geometries that create unique spaces along the streetscape and allow for architecture to embrace the space between the buildings. The building was designed so that it interacts with the pedestrian walking down the street. And these areas include residential stoops, balconies, step backs, and changes in material that highlight the dynamic neighborhood that is being created on site. And you can see how we are activating that streetscape, not with retail and mixed use, but with people really looking from their balconies and their residential stoops onto this central spine that we've created as a streetscape through the middle of the site. You can see the different materials that we're adding to break down that scale, that texture, I'll go with that one instead, of those materials in terms of the brick, the fiber cement panel, and then the warm tones of that wood look panel that we're proposing in many different areas. This is another variation looking at the opposite side, showing how we're also stepping back the top floor to create that visual line and make the building feel as though it's more human scale than pedestrian oriented. So that leads us to some of the statistics that I have just to share with you all. Overall, we are mostly conforming with the residential and zoning standards that we see here. We are proposing a building that is slightly smaller than the 70 feet as measured from the right-of-way frontage as is dictated in the zoning ordinance. We are proposing a total of 676 residential units, and that includes 71 existing dwelling units on site. We are proposing 160 key hotel with conference center, 16,000 square feet of retail, and a total parking count of 1,313 current spaces on site.
Mike, if I could just,
Yep.
one thing I want to point out on those standards, because I know the commission's filmed earlier with, you know, our TODs, we have a 50 units per acre is traditionally what we see as far as density. If you look at this chart closely, you'd see that for this site, that would allow 1,203 dwelling units, and we're proposing 676 in total, which puts us down at slightly above 28 dwelling units per acre. So I just wanted to note that.
Thank you,
Sorry.
Chris.
Yep.
No problem. In terms of the residential parking count, we are proposing about 1.5 parking spaces per unit. And in terms of the average square footage of each of these units that we're proposing, in terms of the studios, those average about 675 square feet. 1 bedroom, 765 square feet. 2 bedrooms, 1,150 square feet. We have a few 2-bedroom townhouses located at that ground level to activate the streetscapes there, and those are averaging around 1,665 square feet. And then we have several 3-bedroom units, which are averaging 1,335 square feet. So that takes us through a lot of the different metrics in terms of what we are proposing on site. Our landscape architect will take us through even more of the site landscaping as well as the public areas that we've created, really harnessing those spaces in between that I talked about, and really highlighting the architecture that we created. So thank you so much.
You're gonna share his, right?
Yep.
Awesome.
Right on to that one.
Very good.
Mhm.
Want to switch seats, Mike?
If you'd like me to, yep. Perfect.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for your time. My name is Dave Lusberg. I'm a landscape architect and urban designer. My firm is called Arterial. And we're a little bit of a niche firm in that we really specialize in streetscape and public space design for activating downtowns and new developments like this one. We actually work on both sides of the coin. So we have a lot of private clients like this one where we're creating active, nice public spaces, and we also have public clients. So we sympathize with both sides, and we're excited to be part of this project. It's a very exciting project. We think that there's a lot of potential. I know that the public space aspect of this is important, and we're excited to show you some of the ideas.
You just click
There
the
we go.
right hand.
It's a little slow. All right, so just to touch on the site quickly, Michael covered it pretty well, but just to be specific, this, you can see one of the most dominant features of the site is this concrete wall that's sort of jutting across the site, and that wall is what creates the separation. So that small triangle in the upper left near Ash Creek Boulevard is about 15 or 20 feet higher than the elevation of essentially the rest of the site. So it's a pretty important feature of the site. That the portion that's at the lower edge is very natural, right? It's been sort of overtaken. It's this kind of post-industrial feeling landscape where it's the landscape has taken the land back over, where the triangle that's closest to Ash Creek Boulevard is really manicured and feels more connected to the developed side of the site. So here's a bird's eye aerial view of that, so you can see that how dominant of a feature that wall is. And one of the things you'll notice if you're familiar with this is this tunnel. You see this right here. This is a tunnel that goes underneath Ash Creek Boulevard and sort of pokes out on the other side near the parking lot. Showing you that because we're planning on maintaining that tunnel and using it as a pedestrian connection between the two sites. So I think one of the great things that this view shows is how that natural landscape touches up against that more manufactured landscape, or that kind of post-industrial feeling landscape. So that leads to our design approach. So we really want to, celebrate the natural assets of the site, right? And not make this a generic cookie cutter feeling development, right? We want it to feel like the place that it's within, this unique landscape. So the entire landscape will be inspired by the natural environment, by the natural ecology, but also by this kind of post-industrial feel, right? This manufactured landscape. So what does that mean exactly? So you can see this image here, I think is a really nice one that sort of illustrates that, right? It's that harsh concrete wall up against that soft natural landscape, things like weathered steel, very utilitarian sort of forms up against this, the waterfront character. We want to really celebrate the ecology and bring that ecology into the site. So, things like eliminating any invasive species, using, any of the coastal guidelines, et cetera, to guide the planting that we use and really help foster the natural wildlife, et cetera, of the creek, and really support what's already happening in the restoration of that area. All right, so now we'll take a look at the concept plan. So we're going to start with this overall view of the site, which probably looks familiar based on what Michael was showing. We've rotated it vertically here. So Ash Creek Boulevard now is at the top of your page here, and Ash Creek itself is at the bottom of the page. So I think starting from Ash Creek down, the first thing that you'll notice is this new park or public space that's right fronting on Ash Creek. And that new park will be at the same elevation as Ash Creek Boulevard, sorry. The wall that you see here is largely the existing wall, which we're going to have to modify a little bit to accommodate some of the residential, but largely it's that existing wall with the existing tunnel punching underneath Ash Creek Boulevard right about here. So this park is public park fronting on Ash Creek Boulevard at that same elevation. As you come into the site, this now steps down, right? So this is at a lower elevation, about 15 feet down. So this is going to create a really interesting promenade into the site. So you're very high, and then you're going to be coming down this slope into the site. So it's really a dramatic entrance into the site, and really through and back towards Ash Creek. And then at this far end, we've created another plaza that for purposes of this presentation, we're referring to it as the Creek Walk. But this would be another plaza space at the end of the road that really allows views out towards the restored wetlands and towards Ash Creek. And then a promenade here along the waterfront. So there's really two access points to the site for vehicles. One is here that traverses down the site and to this drop off of the residential. The other one is here on the left-hand side of the screen here. And this one actually comes in at that higher elevation. So because we have the parking, the structured parking there, this allows this driveway to be at that upper elevation and come into the second floor of the parking garage. So that allows for another unique drop-off, little access area. And I'm going to zoom in on some of this in a minute. But I think one of the things that we're most excited about and our client is most excited about is really the amount of public space that's being provided as part of this project. So these highlighted areas that you see in color are all essentially publicly accessible spaces, right? So the sum of these spaces is over 1.5 acres, close to 2 acres of new public space that's being provided. So those are broken down by piece, and we've used some imagery here to show what that might feel like, the procession down. But starting at Ash Creek Boulevard, there's the public plaza, which fronts on the street. Then there's this streetscape that comes through, right? And this will all be publicly accessible. The tunnel itself, right? Access to the tunnel, which is happening right here. So pedestrians can walk down and into the tunnel. And then at the end here, as I just mentioned, what we're referring to as the creek walk, right? So that's along this waterfront, there's an existing wall there. It's right along that existing wall. One thing that I forgot to mention when I'm showing the aerial was that there's also an existing maintenance path, right? That works through the wetland area. You can see it here in this aerial. And one of the things that we're proposing is providing access from the site to that maintenance path. So first, just looking at some inspiration images. First, starting at the park at the top, it's about 1/4 acre. The park itself is around 1/4 acre. Fronts here on Ash Creek Boulevard, and the thought is that it's a combination of hardscape and open lawn, right? So a nice hardscape plaza at the corner that'll act as a gateway to this neighborhood. And we know that one of the important things here is Ash Creek Boulevard is a very busy road and cars move very fast. So by creating a gateway plaza at the corner, the idea is that functions as a traffic calming element, right? As soon as cars are coming around that turn, they're going to see activity, they're going to see a plaza at that corner. Maybe there's a piece of public art at that corner, like you see here in this example. Not that that's the piece, but it's an example of a piece. Some interesting seating, here we're showing, so, these are very popular, these sort of structured swing seats, things like this, like just some fun seating to really activate the space. And then the open lawn. As you work your way down, you get to the pedestrian tunnel, and the tunnels are a challenge sometimes because you want to make them feel safe and inviting. And one of the ideas that we're putting forward is to maybe utilize that tunnel for public art. How that exactly happens, we can work through the details of that, but the thought is to try to activate that space with some sort of public art. We're showing this example here in the upper right-hand corner. Then as we work our way through, we get to the streetscape. And as Michael has described, the idea is to create a really activated streetscape. So the residential views right onto the streetscape, all the balconies are activating the streetscape, and a nice publicly accessible sidewalk, some stoops, some parallel parking along the edges, things like this. So really, we want it to feel like a traditional streetscape, right? Not like a manufactured streetscape. And that will bring people from the street all the way to the back of the site, what we're showing here at the bottom as the creek walk. So then we get to the creek walk, and we really want this to feel exciting, inviting also. So we want something terminating this view. You're going to be up here at Ash Creek at about elevation 40. At the bottom, you're down at elevation 16. So that's how dramatic of a change that is. So standing up here, you'll be able to look down the streetscape to the end of the site, and we want to have something at that end that draws you in. So this is one idea that we're putting forward. Maybe there's some educational signage, some informational signage along that creek walk that sort of talks about the flora and the fauna of the area, and really invites people to engage with the landscape. All right, so now I'll just quickly zoom in on the public plaza itself. This is the 1/4 acre plaza that's fronting on Ash Creek Boulevard, just so you can get a little closer. And again, this is early concept. These are still under development, but here is that driveway that I was referring to, right? That's going to have a drop off for the residential, and that drop off will enter the residential at the 2nd floor. So the park is here at roughly elevation 40. And these private courtyards at the base of the wall are at elevation 28. So it's a 12 to 15 foot grade change from where the park is to where these are down here. So when you're up at this park, right at the corner, right, one of the strong connections we want to make is out of the residential building. The arrow's lagging a little bit on here, so I apologize, but the coming out of the residential building into this plaza space, and then this plaza space connects you directly across the street to the stair down to the train. So the really nice thing, if you're coming back from the train, you cross the street and you're coming into this nice public plaza at the corner. If you want to hang out, you know, have a picnic, do whatever, there's a nice open lawn here for that space, seating along the back edge, and again, all that landscape coming in, framing that space. So really nice open lawn, could be programmed, could be used for a variety of things, events, things like this. And then a nice hardscape plaza, same, some nice seating, cafe seating, etc. And then at the end here, we're showing what we're calling the overlook. It's a little plaza space that's above the tunnel, where you can hang out here and look down across the site, right? Because you're going to have those nice views. And then the access, right? You're coming along the sidewalk. Here, you'll notice that we're showing parallel parking along Ash Creek, and this is a hope, but we want to aim high here and hope that we get there. And so we're showing parallel parking here along the road, some bump outs for traffic calming to shorten that crossing distance. And then pedestrians will walk along here. They'll come down this slope into the site and then traverse back down into the tunnel, right? And that's how the tunnel would be accessed, or to the residential right here, or continue along to the back of the site. So so with that, I think that's a summary and overview of the public space. Obviously we could get into more detail, but you know, we're excited where it's headed. And we really think that it'll be a great amenity for the community. So.
Chair, we also have land tech here, in our engineering and site plans. I will say though, we're on a conceptual phase. They would come more, you know, as it goes. They are here though, so I don't know if there's a need to have them present, but if technical questions come up from you, they could certainly, you know, respond with what they have.
And I just, if through you, Mr. Chair, if I can, I just wanted to also provide a little bit of context, because as the planning director, I also provide a bit of guidance to applicants when they come in. As we're looking at the Fairfield Blackrock neighborhood, and as it's starting to develop and pieces are starting to be developed, one of the things that I've felt has been missing as we're creating a new neighborhood for Fairfielders is green space. So I have really tried to direct this applicant to be very mindful of public parkland, or, you know, mini parks, just because that has felt like we've gotten some plazas, we've gotten some art plazas, but I've felt like if this is a new neighborhood that we're building together, that's been one of the things where, because of the size of this parcel, they have an opportunity to provide that. So I just want to also provide that context.
So that's it. If you want to go to questions, we have an answer.
Go ahead, Commissioner Braun.
I had a few questions. This is quite a bit bigger than the one we approved, and I think it was 2020. That was 350 or so. So the footprint must be bigger. So it seems to me like you're removing green space instead of adding green space. The whole area right now is green, although it is, my understanding, is built on a plastic membrane, right? The whole thing is. So
somebody else could probably speak better to that, but
It is.
Environmental cap.
But I mean, and look, this piece has gone through a lot of different iterations. Attorney
I know.
Fitzpatrick was the
the
one.
last approval was around 350. Right? Nothing else was approved.
There are
So-
350 units, but then there was also the hotel. There was also,
So there
but
will be
there.
more too. So this is an order of magnitude, like twice that size.
Well, you go, okay.
I mean, I can, through you, Mr. Chair, I can certainly,
Or is that the concept one?
I mean, I can certainly speak to the project that the commission approved included a lot of surface parking. So I think at the time, we understood that it was an underutilization of the property based on density. And that particular applicant chose to fill the property and have limited parking garages and a lot of surface parking. So I think that, we understood that maybe at some point they would come back. And they were just gonna start the first phase and then maybe come back to the commission, which was, I think, the second pre-app that you had seen. But I will say from a planning perspective, we had hoped that the surface parking lots would go away because that didn't seem as appropriate for this area.
So,
And just, I was gonna say, my understanding from Attorney Fitzpatrick, who handled the previous on this, is that the office that was originally approved. So the office buildings that were originally approved, that was 1.2 million before.
That was
less than that.
20 years ago.
That was 2009.
Yeah, but 2020,
Mhm.
they came before us and got the 350, right?
But they've been,
So-
they've been before presenting a pre-app for 674 units. And then, on top of it, what
That was never-
line is saying about.
And so it's the 350 unit one that's been already started, right? The 71 unit building that's been
That was
built.
part of that approval.
So, so this is much bigger. This is according to their 1,169,000 square feet, right? Of
Well, and
floor area.
the other thing I'd point out too is, the floor area allowed in this zone is 150%. And we're proposing, if you look at that table, we have 98%. So we're still well under.
Although for some reason we approved something that was about half the size 5 years ago, but we're getting back to the remediation. Does this require DEP approval as well? Because this was a remediated site, and in 2020, they had to do some kind of a negative air pressure system to keep, because the toxins are still there under the plastic membrane, right? So you're gonna be digging down into it to put the underground parking garage, right?
No, we're above.
Something is below
we're
grade,
above
isn't
that.
it? Is something below grade?
Nothing's below grade.
I thought you said something was below grade.
From Ash Creek Boulevard, right?
So.
No, I'm talking about from where the earth is that you're digging into. That's what.
So what's happening on site is actually there's going to be fill on top of the membrane and the DEP cap that's already been placed. So to get from the high point of the site along Ash Creek Boulevard down, proceeding down to the creek, there will have to be infill of both grade as well as building, but all of that sits on top of what is now essentially a pit on site currently.
So you're adding enough fill to put an underground parking garage in?
The parking garage is sitting on top of the current site, let's say. There'll be fill, because we have to get the roadways down, so there'll be fill from the retaining wall, let's say, inland, to slope the site down to where the current
How
grade
much
is.
fill are you bringing in?
I don't know if we have those calculations yet,
So
but
so you will have an underground parking garage. It's just that you're gonna fill up the earth around it to make it underground.
that's correct.
It's gonna sit on top of the plastic membrane
The
cap, whatever. you
yeah,
call it.
yeah.
And has anyone studied the cap? Because frankly, I'm not too impressed with the wetlands they had to create there, but 25 years ago, they approved a wetlands permit.
Or the team has Lorario, they're the LEP on the site, and they were the original.
Is that being managed? Because with sea level rise and tidal action, the plastic membrane goes right underneath essentially a tidal water body. Like, do you
I'll
know?
defer to the experts on that, and again,
You're gonna have to have an LEP to.
we have the LEP on, yes, we have an LEP.
Area?
Yes, then they were the originals.
Okay,
They,
right, I know that.
so that, the reason we brought them in is for that reason, because they had,
And so the height is just under 70 feet, and the units for each you have two large buildings? And how many units are each building?
So we have, to just make sure, we are underneath the 70 feet. We're currently at about 58.67 feet, the way that the ordinance measures the height from, and that's from the average right of way grade to the roof structure. And in terms of building 1, we have a total of 251 dwelling units, and building 2 has 354 dwelling units.
So is that the height from where you're building up the height of the earth then? So you're talking about you're putting in like what, 10 feet of fill to put the parking garage into, or 14 feet of?
So the way that the ordinance reads is that it's taken from any private access point as well as any right of way. So the way that we perceive that is along Ash Creek Boulevard and then into the roundabout as being the access, the private access into the site. And that's the way then the average grade is calculated. And then that's where we measure the building.
I'm trying to figure out how high the buildings are in relation to the wetlands. to the
So
natural area.
it will be higher than the 58 that we're talking about here. I don't know the actual, but what we've done is we stepped the building down. So you've seen and I tried to illustrate this in some of the imagery as well as in the plans is that as we get closer to Ash Creek, we actually step the building down and eliminate the top floor in certain areas to do so.
I can't really see it from this picture. It looks very close to Ash Creek and very close to the nature area. And also, one last question about the public areas. How many spaces are there in that center point that's open to the general public, not just people who live there?
Parking spaces.
Yeah.
On.
Because last time I came up, there were only 2 spaces for the whole public to access the open space area.
Yeah, and the parking up on the street that we're proposing.
So how many spaces are dedicated to the public that the residents will not be using?
If I could as well, amongst Public Works, Engineering, Plan and Zoning, the first select person's office, we know that Ash Creek Boulevard is not designed for a residential pedestrian neighborhood. And that Ash Creek Boulevard, which was designed to accommodate 2 million square feet of office, needs to be redesigned. So, you know, it's our hope that that's going to be given a little bit of a road diet, because right now it's a very, very wide town-owned road. Can probably accommodate a bike lane, can certainly accommodate on-street parking for what that roadway is feeding, which is right now a commuter lot and the residential units that are being built around it. So, you know, it is envisioned that Ash Creek Boulevard will also go through a transformation. You know, that's part of that is the town's responsibility to kind of study that with, likely with, MetroCog as being a partner, maybe through CMDA dollars, if that's available to us. And then really looking at how we can revise Ash Creek Boulevard as it exists today to something that's more pedestrian and multimodal.
It's not gonna be lowered in height, right?
Oh, no, 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 but the roadway itself.
Honestly, that destroyed the whole thing because we were presented 24 years ago that it was gonna be a beautiful thing, looking out on 9 acres of newly created wetlands. You can't even see the wetlands. You can't, I don't even know how I honestly would like to know how to get to them.
Oh, it's really, conservation easement is great. You take it's great. Yeah.
I just think like you're eating up a lot of green space here, even though it's not real green space. And you can't plant trees there, right? You only have to have, because they could grow through the cap.
Yeah, I'll defer to the professionals for that, but
There can't be no trees here, right?
No. Well, there will be able to be trees. We'll work with the,
Well, certain kinds of tree, an average tree would have roots that would go down into the caps.
right, so that I'm sure that there's a selection that we have to make, right, that we're not gonna have.
Thank you.
Yeah, I pulled the 2024 proposal, which I think was 7 buildings, and it did have a large central common area, but actually that was for private use. And so I much prefer you're consolidating so it's basically 2 new ones plus that one that I think is still under construction, building 4. So I see that as a vast improvement. And I just want to confirm that that central corridor will be open to the public and they will have access, walk from there.
that's correct. It will not be a gated community.
And where will the access to the station be? Want to go from this area up to the station, or do they have to go through the tunnel, or?
So there are 3 ways to get across, and all of this being said, there's still traffic studies being done to make sure that we can get safe pedestrian crossings on Ash Creek Boulevard, but assuming that all works, there are 3 points where they can cross, so the first would be, I'm not sharing.
Oh, wow, we
It's
gotta
just-
focus
yeah.
on, sorry, you're on the top left.
Oh, I see where, how do I,
Make it so easy.
I think John has to. There we go.
so here on the left-hand side of the screen, this is residents from the building will be able to exit the building at the 2nd floor and come out here at grade. So this is at that elevation 40 at Ash Creek Boulevard, and they'll be able to cross here and come down the stairs that are here.
There's not stairs yet.
Stairs that will be there.
Those stairs will be developed as part of the project.
But the space is there for the stairs.
Space.
This is there for the stairs, yeah.
They'll be able to exit the lobby here and come down through the tunnel ultimately. Or they could come up this way and cross again and access it that way. So there are 3 points right now proposed.
Thank you. I'm just gonna go down the line. Commissioner Billy, anything from you?
I'm curious about the general sentiment about commercial down here, right? Like one of the comments you made is trying to create activity based on pedestrians, which were primarily going to be the people living in the development, as opposed to mixed use or commercial. So it's like, what's the feeling about the viability of commercial there, or further explanation as to how you landed on focusing on.
So as a, general piece of real estate for commercial, it's not, ideal that you're going down 25 feet from the street. So that loses some of the appeal on retail side, as well as it's landlocked, right? So circulation for vehicles, you can do a huge surface parking lot and build a big box retail or some strip retail there. But it's parking intensive, right? 4 per thousand, 5 per thousand, depending on the use of the retail usage. So it was kind of a looking at it in a way that, do we provide a public benefit by putting retail usage there, or a public benefit by allowing all the public space and the access to the public space, to the space and to the public, to be able to get to the creek, to be able to, make it a walkable neighborhood. And, I think that it was our view that retail does belong somewhere in this neighborhood. I don't know if this particular site, is viable for retail usage, even mixed use, because.
Do you want to go back to the overall site plan if you can? So and if I through you, Mr. Chair, if I could just add, this is a multi-componented site. So there's the hotel pad, which is on the commuter lot. And then there's also the retail pad, which is not grouped with this residential building grouping, but it's, just go back to that one.
See there, please.
Which is not at the highest point of Ash Creek Boulevard, but where it starts to decrease in grade closer to the larger commuter lot, parking lot. I will say that, the DOT is actively looking at the main lot to see whether redevelopment opportunities are possible. I know that when we looked at what the primary within the TOD plan, when we looked at the areas that were prime retail areas, that higher part was a little more challenging than the lower parts of Ash Creek Boulevard as you connect into Black Rock Turnpike. So, I think that's all of these sites as they've started to be developed. We have focused on a non-residential component that is meaningful to the neighborhood. And sometimes that's not strictly commercial. So I think as a commission, as we're thinking about, again, the elements that folks who are living in this brand new neighborhood need, some of it is going to be commercial square footage, but some of it's going to be other public amenities that are available to them that other neighborhoods have the value of experiencing, like green space.
One of the things as an urban designer as well is that we think about where those program elements really want to be. And it doesn't always mean that activity means commercial space. There are other ways to create that livelihood along that streetscape. And I think that we've hit on those elements in terms of creating those stoops, creating accentuated architecture, creating balconies that look onto that streetscape. All of those different things allow for that activity to prosper, but it's not. The worst thing that you can do is to have a vacant storefront because nobody wants to rent it. And we've all seen that. We've all seen new developments that have, we promise retail and activity and it's just vacant for a long period of time. And that's something that we didn't want to do here. So as Steve said, it really made sense to keep this as a residential oriented area within the main area. And then there is that proposed retail pad that's further along, as Emmeline said, along towards the lower port of Ash Creek Boulevard.
Yeah, I've seen the other building. I think from my perspective, thinking about like the criticism of things that people have said previously, it's like we're talking about adding 700 to 1,400 new residents to the town, and considerations about traffic and the fact that like a lot of the people that live here in this theoretical development would have to go elsewhere to get basic things. Right? Yeah, you have Whole Foods up the street, but they're gonna have to get in their cars and they're gonna have to go somewhere. Like in the existing mixed-use developments we have a couple restaurants, you have a dog hotel, you have a daycare. Those things can be accessed by residents here, but yeah, from my perspective, I know older concepts, and I definitely understand the grade change is not ideal, trying to figure that out, and people have tried and failed to make it work in previous concepts. But that's the thing that kind of came to mind for me is if they wanted something close by, there really isn't anything.
Sure, and as a developer, we pay attention to those things also, right? We want, it would be great if there was a Trader Joe's that was right next door, a CVS, because it's convenience for our tenants, and that would be great. The one thing is proposed that we're thinking is gonna happen soon is that footbridge over the creek into the neighborhood on the other side there. I know.
Bring that up to John.
I know we signed we agreed to an easement on the property and kind of, so we're so we're trying to kind of, and walking over the bridge, there's a restaurant, there's a coffee shop that I've gone to, there is a few things down the road, so it's not a 1-minute walk, it's probably a 5-minute walk, or a little bit of retail, and that helps. Even illicit brewing helps, all these things kind of help, so we don't disagree that retail should be part of our neighborhood. And you don't want to get into your car every single time you want to go, get a carton of milk. And it's a challenging location for retail when you think of deliveries and whatnot. So I think what we showed there as proposed retail, even that was challenging to some respects. The town has an ordinance that you really can't provide surface parking along the street. Right, I believe that's written in the order. So we did the best we could to fit something there and provide for loading and unloading to the right there. Is it the best solution? No, but I think it's one it's on the table. And if we built that, I think we'd be able to rent that, and I think it would not be empty. And is it the best thing for that site? Looking at the whole thing, I'm not sure, but we just showed it as a placeholder as what can be built there, what it would look like with surface parking, with proper access for customers and for deliveries and trash and the like. So.
Last comment, just like the creek line, right? The existing residential. So, and that is under ownership.
That's complete, yes.
And so, like it felt like it was separated, and I know that the parking obviously is not connected. There is what I see as a sidewalk or in the creek walk that's proposed that would connect it, but it just felt like it was a little kind of separate from the rest of the development.
With the current design?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, it's not, again, they won't be cut off, they'll be attached, they'll be interconnected. And with some respects, this parking setup is better than what's currently, the way it's currently set up, which is to the plan west there. So our intent is not to bifurcate that and leave it as by itself and fence it off and not have it be part of the entire overall development. So we are landscaping that. We are going to integrate that into the entire site, so that it will somewhat tie together. But it'll be a neighborhood, right? Not all the buildings in every neighborhood look identical. So I believe the prior plan had all the buildings looking identical. So this adds a different level of character, perhaps, the fact that there's different architecture on the site.
Commissioner Capozzi.
I have a few questions. So are these rental?
Yes, rental
or
rentals.
Okay. And are there affordable housing units?
Yes, we'll have affordable housing, yes.
Do you know approximately how many HUE points with this
I-
would generate?
I'll have to defer because.
I'd have to do it up.
12%.
I think, yeah.
Yeah, I'd have to do it up.
My concern, you know, I'm not an urban planner. I just, you know, Fairfield is a small town, and when you add close to 700 residential units, what is the impact on the existing infrastructure, you know, water, sewage? How do you account for that? How does that work with the town's
Well,
existing?
we are working with the town and we're in communication with the sewer. We've already had meetings. You know, we know that the infrastructure improvement is underway right now. They're working on the site there to increase capacity. So, you know, you know, we feel that we're covered, and our communications with the municipality have kind of led us to believe that.
Are you familiar, well, first, are you able to add more public underground parking into this site? Because my understanding of, based on the presentation, is that the public parking is devoted almost entirely to residential.
The parking, you mean, the parking being provided? Well, I mean, we have a parking ratio that's in place now. If, you know, if there was a, you know, with what's proposed, if we were saying that the ratio was, you know, I don't know, we have at 1.5
We have 1.5 right
1.5 per unit. So if it was, you know, 1.4 per unit, and then the 0.1 would be, you know, public parking, something like that could be looked at. I mean, we'd have to kind of.
Well, I ask, because are you familiar with the Grove in Los Angeles?
No.
You are?
Yeah.
So the Caruso Development Company developed the Grove, the Americana in Pasadena, and there's one in Calabasas that's also beautiful. The reason I used to live in Los Angeles, I grew up here, lived in Los Angeles for a long time. The reason I love those, the Grove sort of encompasses the old farmers market from, you know, way back at, you know, the turn of the century almost. And it is an incredible development in that it allows for people to come there, and it's an outdoor mall, and you can stay there, and you're not driving all over. And I think in this area, you know, one of the goals of the town is to revitalize the commercial sector. And I think when you look at something like this is my layperson opinion, but if you look at something like this in the area that you're proposing it, if you were to incorporate more commercial in a functional, walkable space, that also less residential, more commercial, and it all sort of functioned together and allowed for families to come there and spend the day and go to a movie, go to a department store, go to restaurants, go to kids' gyms, where you know, go to ice cream stores, where the residential feeds into the commercial, and all sort of functions in a symbiotic relationship, and allows for people to park underground and just enjoy a day in this development that is understandably sort of, you know, cut off from the rest of the town. But if you were to build something like the Grove, or a Grove Light situation that allowed for people, you know, the residents, the public, you mentioned a Trader Joe's, you could drugstores.
They're already in town, they won't come.
No, I mean,
Yeah.
but you know what I mean, or any kind of you know, another Sprouts, you know, anything that just allowed for more of a communal experience on this massive piece of property that is just sitting languishing, I think would be a more advantageous experience for the town.
So you mentioned massive piece of property, and perhaps it is massive when you look at it. When you mentioned the Grove and these other projects, I would probably venture to say, and I don't know them, but see, we're landlocked here on 3 sides, right? So even a light, you know, Grove Light project would be challenged with, when you consider the landlocking on 3 sides and the change in grade. So I don't disagree with what you're saying. I know, you know, that mixed use community, that, you know, and while, and the outdoor market is great. Again, California, the weather's a little bit better. We would have had a tough time this year with the outdoorness, the outdoor activity. But with that said, I think that, you know, the retail component here on site and getting cars and public in and out of the site with, again, the change in grade is just not a, you know, it's not ideal, right? So if we're, you know, we would, yeah.
If I could through you, Mr. Chair, I think as we're seeing all of these pieces of this neighborhood come together, what is going to make more sense for kind of a retail heart is going to be the lot. When you think about proximity and when you think about where the other residential projects are. And so I wouldn't discount the future of that lot. We're not going to see everything develop all at once. That's just the reality of what we've seen with this parcel over time. Trademark One was the first. Their retail sat vacant for almost 2 years, and they carried that commercial space for 2 years until they got Sally's, and now they're fully occupied on that ground floor, thank goodness. But it took a long time for them to end up with tenants with staying power who could stay there for a little while. As we build up the critical mass, there's more opportunity for that to be the retail heart right next to the train station. And so I know that we did the TOD plan for this. We talked about where appropriate retail edges would be. And I do tend to agree, as we're building this neighborhood, we do have to kind of think about some of these areas as being where fringe residential would be, right? And then the heart, that's going to be where we put like a lot of, we break that big piece up into digestible parts. And that's where our retail activity is going to be more so, I feel like. That's where it makes sense, because then all these residences can access it to the center, right off the train. And I think that's where we kind of dig our heels in. This site, again, it's hard because of the grade change. It's really challenging.
I mean, again, if this is close to 700 units, do you have an identified demand for these units, or is this a build it, they will come?
I think it's more of 650, it's under 700, right?
Yeah.
I would say that.
676.
Yeah, with the existing one. I would say that we're not gonna build them all at the same time. So I have to believe that, we're not concerned with demand. There's a shortage everywhere.
Well, and just because I'll note too, the TOD study, which was 2019, did some research into that. And I think it looked at both downtown and metro. It said over 5 years that the market would support the construction absorption of just under 1,700 to over almost 2,100 units. That was over 5 years. The metro station was 224 to 264 units per year, which would put it at 1,120 and 1,320. And even with Alto and all those, we're not close to that. This development would obviously help get towards that, but that was from 2019. For the next 5 years after that is what I think it's forecasting.
And my last,
Just 1 second, Commissioner Monahan, I see your hand. I'm just going down the line, so I'll get to you.
I have one last question. Do you have a hotel brand that's interested in occupying the space currently?
We do not. We are in the middle of doing feasibility studies with third-party hotel consultants. We've talked to a few, 3 different hotel operators, managers. So we're in the process, and we want to do a hotel. We want it to work though. We want it to be able to, again, we want the demand to the studies to vet out, everything, and then we can go from there. Yeah. I just want one more thing I wanted to mention, that we don't, Mr. Here to kind of, we're trying to create a piece of the neighborhood. walkable neighborhood. That's why we brought Arterial, because that's their specialty. You know, urban centers and how to get people, how to activate the streets. And that's kind of what our intention was here. So knowing that the retail is not, you know, is not the best use for the site because of the constraints that were mentioned. So we want to make this a destination for the neighborhood to come, not necessarily concerned about somebody driving because they want to walk onto the creek. They've always had access to the conservation walk with this site here. So.
Commissioner Huntley. No questions. Commissioner Monahan.
I agree with prior commissioners who discussed that it seems very residential heavy and that we do not seem to have enough retail here. I don't think anyone's coming into this development to walk unless they live across the street. It's not going to be a destination like that, the way it's currently designed. There's no one who's going to drive over there unless they're at BJ's with a car full of groceries and decide, oh, I'll go take a walk along Ash Creek. It's likely not going to happen. So to integrate more retail obviously would make sense. The reason illicit brewing, has been so successful is it's become a destination. They have the outdoor areas, they have events inside, they have a really good amount of parking for people to, visit, and lots across the street, spots across the street to use, etc. So I think it's way too big, way too residential heavy. Do you have, and I know you're talking about demand, do you know how many apartments, not just 830G, are planned currently for the town of Fairfield, including Southport? And then I do have other questions, but I'd like to know if you have that answer.
I do not have that answer.
Okay, so to speak to demand without having an answer to that question, I think is, a little presumptuous to believe that there's demand without having an accurate number. There are thousands of units that are in the process of being built and are currently being built. And I do not believe that we have the demand for what you're proposing currently. I agree, we absolutely need to redevelop this area. But I think, the amount of apartments in this development without a significant addition of retail is irresponsible for the town, given that we just had a big shift from residential, from commercial to residential, which is, yes, this is going to generate, tax income for the town, which is wonderful. But, we do need to build up our retail more, and any available lot like this should be deemed a gold mine, in terms of people wanting to develop it. I'd also like to know why you think Creekline failed and why you took that over. I know in a foreclosure settlement recently, how many residents currently live in the building? And I know they were not able to achieve maximum capacity. Like, why? Are there current residents living there? How does this development impact them? And so on and so forth. And
yeah.
also one last question.
Sure.
How many, you said there's 676 units total. Looking at the number of units, studios, 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, and 3 bedrooms, how many people do you anticipate being added in this neighborhood for the town?
I don't have the answer to that question. That's not an analysis that I've gotten into as far as the quantity of people that would be living here.
I was just speaking, you were talking about sewage. So I just wanted to talk about sewage, and we also have obviously water shortages, et cetera. So it's not just about the number of people, but if you could talk to that.
Yeah, again, I'm sure that the utilities and the engineers have calculations that make assumptions based on some data. I know that we've done the testing, the flow tests on the sewers currently. I know that we provided existing data. The creek line is currently occupied. I don't know what the current occupancy is, but it is occupied currently. This new development doesn't impact them at all. So the foreclosure was a documentation foreclosure. It wasn't a foreclosure in true sense of the word. I don't see any impact to creek line at all. If anything, this would be somewhat of a benefit to Creek Line, just to kind of get something else, developed around it. So it doesn't seem like it's on an island by itself like it currently is.
So when Cosma purchased it, was the building full?
When AMZAC purchased it, the building was not full. No, AMZAC purchased the building before it was completed. And not purchased, AMZAC took over control of the building while it was under construction. We completed the construction and have started leasing the building up.
But they were already leased before the foreclosure happened, correct?
No,
There were people
no,
living in
no,
there.
no. The building was not leased before the foreclosure happened, no. The building is still currently being leased. We took over the building when it was, 50% complete with construction. We've been dealing with the municipality, the building department, and all the agencies of the town in completing that building. We were part of that completion, and now we are leasing it up.
So how many people are currently renting in that building?
I'll have to get you that information. I don't know off the top of my head. People or units, I'm not, it's 71, it's 71 units. It's more than half occupied. I do not know off the top of my head.
Okay. Thank you.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, is my turn?
Yeah.
Oh, sure. Okay. Hey, thanks for your responses to our questions. I've got two categories of questions or topics. So I'll start with the one that everybody's been focused on, and that's mixed use. I'm looking at page 6 of 21. I think it's similar to the one that's on the screen, and it shows some pink areas. John, I think you can find it there. But I think in terms of like what the consensus is if you had some more, there you go. If you had some more residential amenities in there, it would probably be a plus. I'm just going to leave it at that. You've got those shared uses in the corners there, maybe a couple more corners, with, I don't know, a deli, dry cleaner. And I think this could be a destination. It looks like it could be a really nice place to walk. I could see somebody driving their car in with their dog and walking around there. I'm on a tangent, but it is the design of this really is top notch. I think you've put together an excellent team. I looked at some of the other work that Minnow and Arterial did. Milburn jumped out at me. I mean, if we could make this look anything like Milburn would be great. And then for Minnow and Wasik, I think if you guys could let us know what other buildings this might look like. I looked at some of the other ones. Ray, I think the Ray building and Vermella on Broad Street. If you could just give us some examples, just to give the commissioners some sense of the scale of this, that would be helpful. So in terms of programming, right now your parking ratio is 1.56. Just as a point of reference, we've been approving things at 1.25. We also have a new ordinance that says you can submit a parking study. I'm just throwing that out there as some food for thought. And we do allow shared parking on adjacent areas. So just informing you of some of the new ordinance we have. I think the wrapped garage is great. You hide that, conceal it. You put it on the kind of the back side of the building. I think that's really a good feature. Now, some of the things that I think could use a little bit more work is the scale along the walking area. And again, now I'm just down to some details. I think you guys have done a great job with the stoops, making things human scale. There was one image, I think it was on page 20 of 21. I don't know if it was in the architectural or the but it basically it looks just a little bit. It looks a little bit. Is that that one? Yeah, or you can go one before that one. But it looks a little out of scale. Like it could be a little more humanly scaled if you had a base, middle, and top. We're working on design standards. That would make it a little bit more humanly scaled. But this is a little bit. It's not as humanly scaled as I would like to see. But it's good architecture, and the commissioners know that I'm a pretty tough critic on the architects. And then I guess the other thing is there's a new development going in over in Bridgeport. And there's an element of homogeneity to that. and there's a bit of an element of homogeneity to what you have here. You know, I see a lot of stuff in Europe and elsewhere where they just build these big blocks at once, and it kind of looks like it. If you could, you know, break down some of the homogeneity, and again, that's an ask. What else? Oh yeah, okay. So the open lawn. That's just, I mean, it looks like you guys solved the grade problem really well. It's a tough problem, especially after you explained it. I've driven past that site a million times, and it looks like you did a good job. But that open lawn looks like, you know, a place where kind of you know, the fast food wrappers and the little nips might collect. I don't know if you wanted to maybe put a hedge or a wall along Ash Creek to enclose that, to make it like a little park. You know, see pocket parks in Manhattan everywhere. That's just a suggestion. But I think you guys have you know, you're very thoughtful. You've got a really very capable design team. I looked at some of their other work just now, and it's exciting to see this squalid, decrepit, graffiti-strewn, forgotten parcel to turn into something that's could be a home to many newcomers to Fairfield, and generate a substantial tax base for us. So I really think you're headed in the right direction here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Commissioner Bright, you had something else?
Yeah, no, that's okay. It was answered.
Okay. I echo a lot of what Commissioner Randolph said, particularly on the design. I think architecturally, overall, excellent quality, but I do agree on that, the road where there has the kind of stoops, some more variation, aesthetic variation would be great. And I think when it comes to the discussion of commercial, I fully agree. I would like to see more commercial. I also understand the challenges that you articulated with having commercial there. But I do think there is some room for a happy medium without turning this into an overall mixed use plan. When I look at that street that you just showed with the stoops, it looks like it's begging for some limited neighborhood retail, like you know, I see those stoops and it's like a coffee shop would be perfect there. I know Wake Up Coffee is right there. So don't get hung up on the specific, but I mean, it just looks like a perfect spot to put some sort of small neighborhood retail mixed in with those stoops, aesthetically and from a use compatibility perspective. And so I think if there are opportunities to put small retail spaces integrated into the plan, I think that could achieve the desire to have some more variation and use there, while also acknowledging the realities of trying to, and the challenges of trying to inject commercial into a space that does have the access issues, being landlocked and everything else that you explained. But I think if you were able to figure that out, I think it would really elevate this. This is certainly better, not only than what's there now, of course, but I think this is a big improvement over the previous proposal that came before us as a pre-app. So on that, and I think with some minor adjustments, it could be even better. Other Commissioner Levy.
Yeah, or perhaps consider retail as part of the hotel conference center.
The hotel, that side would have some retail. It would have something. We have commuters. It's a different dynamic, right? You'll have different type of traffic. So
that would incorporate some retail there.
No, but we haven't gone into the specifics of the hotel. There's lots of things that are, being figured out. I mean, we've come a long way. Again, we've been working with Mark Barnhart and Emmeline, and just trying to figure out, all the details. We're not putting it on the back burner. Again, we are investing money in feasibility studies and lots of time and design money to figure out the hotel. And we really feel that, we can say conference center. We feel that there's a good opportunity to put a function space there. I'm not from Fairfield, but my son went to school here, graduated last year. I spent a lot of time looking for hotels. Wasn't great. You know, but other events that they would have, you know, through the university, they're going to Bridgeport, they're going to other areas. And I don't think there's a function space in Fairfield to house 250, an award ceremony, a dinner dance, a fundraiser, function or something, you know, for 250 people. So we feel there might be a need there but again, the challenges are the site. So that's why it's a big conversation with lots of parties, including the state and the DOT and the town, you know, to get there. But we are not putting it on the back burner.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the feedback. This is the purpose of this, is to get feedback, so we appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
I have one more question.
Go ahead.
What's the decision, what's your thinking about rentals versus condominiums? Did you ever consider having any of these for purchase, or, I mean, does the
No,
math
yeah,
not
I
make
mean,
sense? What's
you know,
what's the idea? There's so many rental apartments going up, but not that many
Sure.
for sale condos. So just would
Yeah.
like to hear your thinking on that.
Well, I would think that, you know, if there was a demand, that there would be, you know, that maybe perhaps, you know, the ratio would be different. So we always go, you know, we do our studies are based on comp sets, as much of real estate is, and, you know, our projections on rents and whatnot are based on comps. If there are condo comps that show that there's an opportunity there to do condos, we're not adverse to doing condos necessarily, but I don't believe that, you know, I don't believe that anything is showing now that would show that it's a benefit, you know, for us to do condos here, that there'd be a demand for it.
So I just want you to look at Stone Ridge, which is, you know, it's very close to where you are, and it's a beautiful condo complex, and there's nothing available. Sometimes people choose to rent them out. There's considerable demand for condos, especially with elevators in the town. And I think that, you know, it also creates a sense of permanence for individuals who also want to buy into a place like this, who I believe could, you know, further, you know, solidify it as a true neighborhood, not just a place where people kind of come and go.
We have discussed condos. We just don't know if we can kind of say that a 250 unit condo building, you know, is something that there'd be a huge demand for at that level. I don't know how big this other project is that you mentioned, but you know, so, but I don't, you know, the units are being built in a way that you could condo them, you know, at any point in time. They're all built with individual utilities and whatnot. So there's nothing that says that, you know, if there was demand there, that we couldn't, you know, possibly look to, you know, convert one of the buildings to a condo building.
Okay.
Just to say, the grove is 20 acres. So if you made a little quarter grove somewhere.
Right. It was all over the country.
No, I know. Yeah.
Right? So yeah, I think it's
This is at the corner of Fairfax and
third.
Fairfax and Third
Yeah.
in Los Angeles.
Yeah. Yeah,
It's surrounded by an awful lot of residential.
Yes.
So it's got a lot of supportive critical mass.
walkable, it's walkable, right? I believe that what you envision will happen in this neighborhood. That's my gut feeling. So, you know, I'll make that prediction. Where's the cow sheet? Who's putting this on the cow sheet? Make that prediction that you're gonna see that type of development somewhere here.
Okay. Sounds good.
That's my feeling. So, all right, thank you.
Bear with us for 1 second.
You need to go up, John? Or you just?
All right, we'll move
Here.
on to our coastal site plan application, 196 Catherine Terrace, an application of Catherine Terrace LLC for a coastal site plan review for demolition of an existing single-family house and construction of a new FEMA compliant house. Residents. B zone, let Ms. Mullen go through recommendations. And just a reminder, when we get a motion on this item, that we need to acknowledge the findings that this complies with the Coastal Management Act.
Yes.
Connecticut Coastal.
There are no adverse impacts to coastal resources.
Go ahead, Mr. Mullen.
Good evening, everyone. My name's Jonathan Mullen, Assistant Planning Director, Town of Fairfield. This is a coastal site plan review for 196 Catherine Street. I'll read the findings as they're in the report. Number one, the entire site is located in the AE11 flood zone. Number two, the Town of Fairfield Planning Department has reviewed the proposal and provided conditions of approval. Number three, the State of Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection reviewed the proposal and provided a letter dated June 3rd, 2026 with recommended conditions of approval. Number four, if all conditions provided are followed, the proposal is consistent with the Connecticut Coastal Management Act and will not adversely impact coastal resources. Conditions of approval are as follows. Number one, soil erosion and sedimentation control shall be installed and maintained during the entirety of the construction project at the subject site. The applicant shall revise the architectural plans to show the electric meter mounted on the structure 1 foot above base flood elevation with access in accordance to section 20.2.1.f of the zoning regulations. The applicant shall revise the architectural plans to show the HVAC equipment mounted on a platform at least 1 foot above base flood elevation in accordance with section 20.2.1.f of the zoning regulations. And the applicant shall, condition 4, the applicant shall revise the architectural plans to accurately reflect the proposed number of bedrooms. And number 5, the applicant shall adhere to all the conditions listed in the State of Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection letter dated June 3rd, 2026.
Thank you, Mr. Mullen. I'll ask for a motion on this, and since Mr. Mullen articulated the findings, if you choose to move to approve, you can move to approve adopting both the staff recommendations and the findings articulated by Mr. Mullen. Commissioner Braun.
Move to approve adopting the conditions of approval as set forth by Mr. Mullen
And the findings.
and the findings as well.
Thank you. Commissioner Braun moves to approve with the findings and conditions as articulated by Mr. Mullen. Do I have a second? Commissioner Capozzi seconds. Any other comments?
So this adds 1,500 or so square feet of impervious surface, and that's been adequately addressed by the stormwater system.
The net increase is actually less than that. It's about 986 square feet. But yes, the applicant proposes 2 subsurface stormwater infiltration units for the structure. One located in the northwest in the side yard of the property, and one at the southern end of the property to collect the trench drain runoff from the impervious driveway.
And this is quite a distance away from any tidal wetland.
Correct.
Thank you.
Commissioner Capozzi.
No, nothing further.
Any other comments from the commission? All those in favor of motion to approve the coastal site plan application, adopting the findings and recommendations as articulated by Mr. Mullen, please raise your hand. Thank you. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Mullen. Next is 755 Melville Avenue, a special permit application by Fairfield Public Schools to add more than 250 cubic yards of fill in conjunction with converting existing sports fields to turf athletic fields for Ward High School in a residence R3 zone. Can I please have a motion? Commissioner Levy.
Move to approve.
Commissioner Levy moves to approve. Second, Commissioner Delgado seconds.
Fairfield, as was explained, was needed. They've addressed the environmental concerns, which have changed the nature of the turf fields used. I'd love to still see grass there. I gather there are existing problems with in terms of the competition among schools, as well as maintaining the grass area. And the additional fill would not make any substantial difference to the grade and would permit the installation of the turf fields.
Delgado.
Nothing further.
Commissioner Randolph. You're on mute, Commissioner Randolph.
To ask a controversial question here, what assurance we have that the fill is been legally obtained and is proper?
The applicant had indicated the specific brand, I guess it was, of
And source and manufacture.
fill they're using. I'm sorry, are you talking about the
250 yards, the 250 yards of fill, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, the 250 yards of fill that's going in there. Do we, and again, I just want to make sure that given the history, the sordid history we have with this, just want to ask the question.
Hang on, we have someone better equipped to answer this.
It's
Good.
7,400 feet.
So we, just so you all know, anytime we bring fill into any school site, we have it tested first.
Sorry, just name for the
Oh, I'm
record.
sorry, Angeles Pop Church. I'm the Executive Director of Operations for Fairfield Public Schools. So anytime we bring any material onto school sites, specifically fill, we do have it tested prior to, and we use a residential standard for the fill. That being a concern, and with the amount of fill we're talking about fill bringing in, the intent is to bring all stone in, which is a clean fill, as opposed to dirt, so that there is no chance of any type of material being brought on site that would not meet residential levels.
And just a follow-up question. So given you all know why I'm asking this question. So just given the terrible history we've had with Phil, is there any special measures being used as to the source of it, the certification, the testing? What additional measures are we taking given our terrible history over the last 10 years mismanaging these types of efforts?
So as I mentioned, we're not bringing dirt in, we are bringing stone in because stone is clean as opposed to a dirt which could have a mixture of chemicals associated with it. Stone is a clean substance.
No, I know, but are we undergoing any additional testing, certification, inspection, given our history as a municipality to not have proper verification of fill?
I'm not sure what the question is, because like I said, we're not bringing.
Do we have a professional engineer who's inspecting the fill, who will be attesting to the quality, the performance, the specifications, that it meets the specifications, and signing off on his professional license with his insurance, assuring that we don't have any problems like we've had over the last 10 years?
So we do have an LEP on the site for this project, but as I said, you can't test stone. It's not like a material that can be tested.
It's inspected. It's inspected when it comes in.
Yeah, it's inspected. There won't be any organic. It's all going to be stone that's brought in. So we will have LEP and oversight, and I have a project manager also assigned to this project.
And will they be signing off with their professional certification that this is being done properly?
We can ask for them to do that, absolutely.
Yeah, it would be good. I mean, just given, we're as a commission being asked to approve this, and I just want to make sure that all reasonable measures are being taken to make sure we don't have any problems.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Monahan.
After, I'm not a huge fan of turf fields, but listening to the presentation and the need, not only for the school to house the athletes, after not shipping them off site for practices, I think it's a great idea. What troubled me a little bit about this site were the properties adjacent to the one field and how close that field is to the property line. And do you feel 100% sure that there will be no adverse effects on the neighboring properties that they've been made fully aware of what's happening in the coming months and whenever this field is going to be built?
They absolutely have been made aware of it. They were sent the flyer for the meeting for you to attend if they had chosen to do so. We actually also just recently cut down a tree in that area as well because it was dead and dropping branches on the neighbor's yard. And that actually created the opportunity for a lot of the neighbors came out, talked to us, asked us about what the plan was. And we kind of had an improv meeting with some of the neighbors there. We actually got a lot of positive feedback because by taking the tree down that was dropping branches in the neighbor's pool, she was very appreciative.
Great, thank you.
All those in favor of the motion to approve, please raise your hand. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is 10 Sasko Hill Road, an application of Sasko 10 LLC for a special permanent coastal site plan review for construction of a new portico, concrete entrance ramps with low retaining walls, reconfiguration of sidewalks and driveway entrances, and new landscaping in a design commercial district. Can I please have a motion on the item? Commissioner Braun.
Motion to approve the special permit in the separate coastal site plan review, subject to the conditions staff recommends on the coastal site plan review, which itself incorporates by reference the DEE letter dated May 19th, 2026. With also with the standard conditions. I'm sorry, yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
That's it.
Thank you. Commissioner Braun moves to approve with the staff recommendations and findings. And I'm sorry, what's the other, the DEP?
This, which itself, that's the coastal site plan.
Incorporating that.
Incorporating the, which also incorporates the DEP letter dated May 19th, 2026.
Thank you. Can I have a second? Commissioner Capozzi seconds.
So I have one question though, for Ms. Harrigan. Is there signage for the public access to that easement? Like, that's not us, that's conservation that would.
Conservation, yeah.
So if they need a sign to, so the public knows they can get there, that's up to conservation to provide a sign, right? It's not town-owned land, it's.
It's a conservation easement,
Does that mean
so
the public has access to the river? I think there's.
they do. I don't, you know, my understanding, as was indicated by their in the wetlands consultant, the sidewalk was installed without inland wetland to be reviewed by inland wetlands to determine whether they're going to allow for that sidewalk to remain. I think it was really intended as a passive observation area, but without, if for whatever reason they choose not to approve that sidewalk, I would hate to sign it if there wasn't clear and safe access.
So the standard conditions of special permit are location, type, character, and size of the buildings. And this is, of course, a safety feature to eliminate the cut through into the parking lot and just make them all go in from the Sasko Hill Road side. Is it appropriate for the early development of the town? I would say yes. Nature and location use of the buildings provides adequate access to fire protection, yes. Are the street serving it adequate? Yes, this is right on the corner. And is the use in compliance with the POCD? I would say yes. And then as far as the coastal site plan review, assuming that they follow all the conditions, I would say yes. And the good thing is they're also doing something a little bit extra, which is removing invasive species and adding native plantings in the tidal wetland area. So that's kind of a bonus.
Thank you, Commissioner Capozzi.
Nothing further.
Any other comments? If all those in favor of the motion to approve the special permit and coastal site plan application with the conditions and findings articulated by staff, please raise your hand. That passes unanimously. Next is section 4.12, Beach District provides clarification for the allowance of sand fences, post and road and deer fence property delineations permitted above the coastal jurisdiction line. On this item.
Yeah, I move to approve the amended one that was filed today.
Commissioner Levy moves to approve. Do I have a second? Commissioner Capozzi seconds, Commissioner Levy.
By way of background, I mean, this has come full circle, at least for me. Section 19.2.1, which had to do with setbacks of fences, which specifically excluded from those setbacks, section 4.12, which is setbacks from Long Island Sound. Initially, and that provision provides that there are no fences basically allowed south of the or waterward of the buildings on Fairfield Beach. And for one who believes in the public trust, I thought that was great. And I said, you know, first question was, what about these posts and ropes? Are they fences? But then I've come full circle on that from not wanting anything there to instead saying in our current regulation says no fences whatsoever. And our zoning enforcement officer has taken a common sense approach to mean that means no stockade fences, anything that would impair view, but to not consider sand fences, which probably are tautologically are fences, and the other barriers as being allowed. In recognition of the existing condition, as well as listening to my fellow commissioners, I've come full circle. And so the answer is not to exclude fences, but instead to provide guidance to the homeowners on the beach area as to what is allowed. And this regulation addresses the area above the coastal jurisdiction line, which is in accordance with state statute 22A 109. And basically says, instead of saying that no fences are allowed, the current version is that wood, slat, and wire sand fences landward at the coastal jurisdiction line, not higher than 4 feet above grade. I specified wood, slat, and wire because if you look at Home Depot, you can buy plastic, orange or green plastic sand fences, that they call it, with lots of holes in it. So I think we're basically talking about sand fences as we're used to, and which is there. The 4 feet is, I actually measured, and most of them are 4 feet. Post and rope boundary demarcation fences, those are what you see particularly closer to the Penfield Pavilion area. And those do tend to be 3 feet high and with the rope in between. And that's an appropriate, I guess, appropriate balance between the private property rights of homeowners in that area, as well as the public right. Structures 1 foot or less, subject to coastal site plan review, that's consistent with the existing regulation. That would still be subject to our purview under the coastal site plan review. And such structures is already allowed by DEEP. I don't know if anything has been approved by DEEP, but if it has, we wouldn't be affecting that. And then I picked up simply the language, and this is a direct quote from the statute 22A-109, is that no event shall any structure or fence substantially alter the natural character of coastal resources or restrict access along the public beach. That's to basically give guidance to homeowners as to what the state statute is. In terms of it complying with the, POCD, I looked particularly at page 77, future land use, which refers to the beach district, which is to promote shorefront residential land uses that do not adversely impact the coastal resources. Then also on page 60, capacity and limitations. The town's coastal development has largely been residential, but has focused on public access. So again, the POCD recognizes the balance between private property rights, public access to the shore. And I think by amending 4.12 from no fences are allowed to these 2 types of fences will be allowed, will consistent with the POCD, and will be providing guidance to homeowners, and will also allow our zoning enforcement officer to or any future zoning enforcement officer, if Mr. Decker retires in more than 25 years, which I hope will be around, we won't have to torture the definition of the word fence, since it's specifically described in here. I think that basically summarizes it.
Thank you, Commissioner Levy. Commissioner Capozzi.
I'm not going to follow that act.
Other comments, Commissioner Braun.
I would ask Commissioner Levy, could you explain what portion of 4.1.2 is different from what's in the current regulations we have now, which we
Yeah.
recently changed, right?
No, we have not changed 4.12.
Okay, so what portion of this is different than that?
Well, if you look at the one that's currently online, the one that says 6.9, it's highlighted.
Oh.
Basically, the letter A
Oh,
was
hold on, because
added.
you put a changed one in today, right?
Yes.
That's what I'm looking at, I think, right?
You're looking, it should be
I think
6.9.
it's-
You're looking
Oh,
at the old
6.5?
one. Yeah, this
Oh.
one's 6.9.
Okay. So does that show the changes from the prior one?
Yes.
I guess, I must have downloaded this before
Oh.
6.9 ended, before it came through. So maybe you could just explain what are the changes between this
The
and what's
changes
in the
are-
regulations, yeah.
Less than 25 feet. The whole first paragraph is existing. I added a paren. Then the next line, the setback shall also apply to other structures
Wait,
more.
the setback will also apply, is that new then?
No, that's existing. The
That's already in
setback
there.
shall also apply
So in
to
other words,
all
the set,
fences and
okay, the
other
setback applies
structures.
to fences right now in the beach area.
Yeah,
Okay,
other than 1 foot above ground. And then what's new is provided, however, that the following shall be allowed. What I've added is what we allow.
where's that
So-
provided?
That's new.
In what section?
Right,
A?
provided, however.
Oh, so everything existed here except where you're providing this shall be allowed. So you're making an exception to a prohibition on fences.
There's a prohibition on fences, except we will allow wood slat and wire sand fences. And frankly, that's because they apparently do serve an environmental purpose, which I hadn't focused on previously. And the other are just de facto, as long as it's above the coastal jurisdiction line, people are going to want to demarcate property.
I do think B down below should, if that is you had mentioned that is a recitation of what is in the coastal Coastal Management Act, and that just be referenced in there?
Could be, I don't know that we need to.
Because it looks like you're adding another sort of condition on it, but in reality, all you're doing is stating this in the Coastal Management Act.
Well,
Like,
it's also in our POCD, that same language.
yeah, well, but now you're making it a regulation. Yeah,
I
I
don't
would
know.
just like to say, in accordance with Coastal Management Act, comma, in no event. I would just
I'd
like to say
rather
that.
I prefer they stand apart, because there's a lot more in 22A 109. This is subsection C. I don't incorporate anything else. It doesn't apply. It's a lengthy statute, as you know. So I would just leave it as, this is the section we're
Okay, well,
referencing.
I did verify it does match the language in the Coastal
Yeah,
Management Act.
so I don't want to cite it, because who knows what'll then. And we do, and as I pointed out, this week's Law Journal includes a case that's been going on for 4 years, one neighbor suing the other to enjoin the construction of a fence. So
Interesting. Yeah.
we don't want to encourage that sort of litigation if we can avoid.
Commissioner Monahan.
Thank you. And thank you for your comments. So point B was never in any of the earlier documents that we received, and it's very subjective. And so because it's in the POCD doesn't mean it's the law, but now, we're putting in what I believe would be a bit of an issue for a zoning enforcement officer to say that something would substantially alter the natural character of coastal resources or restrict access. I have no problem with that. But in no event shall any structure or fence substantially alter the natural character of the coastal resources. A fence is not, natural. So to me, this is inherently subjective, and I think, should not be part of the regulation.
Through you. Actually, all it is it simply restates what is the law, so that anybody looking at it will know that that is, that's right from the state statute. It's not new. That's what the law is. It simply provides it here. So when we're dealing with fences, seaward of the, towards this, or landward of the coastal jurisdiction, is any fence likely to substantially alter the natural character? I don't think so.
Every fence would.
Was it?
Every fence would.
Well, we're allowing the fences to exist. They're not going to it might be something where somebody wants to put up 10 separate fences, and I don't know. I mean, that's what the law is. I don't see any problem in keeping it.
But every fence would affect the natural character of the coastal resources. So how could we have that in there? A fence is a fence. It's not.
Needs to substantially alter. I mean,
Okay.
we allow fences. A fence in and of itself does not substantially alter unless somebody comes up with some fence that is going to be, I can't imagine, but somebody just might. So
Well,
I'm simply
you're very
restating what the-
specific. You're very specific in what you allow,
Yes.
right? So therefore, it shouldn't need to be in there to say that it's very subjective to say that you might not like their sand fence, their snow fence, and it shouldn't be in there.
Well,
I think
more
it
likely
creates
would
more
be-
legal problems for us than to include it than not to include it.
in that it restates existing law. I don't see where it creates any problems. Whether it's here or not, it simply advises them that that is the law. And they
I
should be
think
aware of that.
if this was going to be added, this should have been on the document that was put forth in terms of the public record where people could comment on it and the ramifications of it. And now we're adding it and we're pushing it through at the end. And I don't think that that's fair to beach residents.
I just want
Please.
to, go ahead. I'm
If
not
there
gonna
was
argue
going to be
with
something added, I don't want to argue about it. If there's something that we were going to add and we had a public comment that was, open to residents who live on the beach who could be affected by this, then that language should have been in that document that they could have discussed. So to not have it in there, now to add it in at the last minute doesn't seem right or fair.
Well, simply restating law that already binds them, I do not see as anything that merits further discussion. That,
Respectfully disagree.
fine.
Any other comments? All those in favor of the motion to approve, please raise your hand. All opposed? Motion passes 6-1. Next is section 25.13.4, conservation and parking management districts, parking mitigation. Proposed language that retains minimum parking standards for residential developments less than 16 units for up to two areas not to exceed 8% of Fairfield land areas permitted per Public Act 25-1. Areas under consideration include portions of Southport and portions of the Fairfield Center, existing northerly to the west of Fairfield University and south into the residential B duplex zone along Reef Road. Do I have a motion on the item, Commissioner Braun?
I make a motion that this commission adopt new section 25.14 conservation parking mitigation districts. The one that's being proposed is CPND number 1, labeled Fairfield Center Reef Road Southport 6/9/2026, and the associated map that has the same title, which is CPMD number 1, Fairfield Center Reef Road Southport 6/9/26. I'm going to hand out hard copies. I have 10. Oh, I need a second.
Yeah, and
Sorry.
can I have a second?
It is.
Commissioner
Second.
Monahan seconds.
And I emailed them, so the commissioners that are not here,
Is the hard copy different than what's on the,
I could forward that email to you if you didn't
is
get
the
it.
hard copy different than what's on the
No, it's exactly what I emailed
shared drive?
a few hours ago. You want me to?
No, is it on the shared drive?
I don't know if it showed up on the town website because it was kind of mid-afternoon, but I can forward the email to both of you.
It is on the website.
Shall I share?
It's the one that says 6/6/9/26 in the title of the document of both PDFs. Both, actually, the regulation is a Word document and the map is a PDF. I'll just forward the email again.
No, I'm looking on the shared drive. So where is it on the shared drive?
It's under this agenda item number.
Right. Is it
And
a folder, parking studies and maps?
no, it's within the general folder. And I think I labeled it where it says, I think it starts with Braun. And then
Okay,
it
Braun,
says, it
Braun
has the
email
date.
correspondence.
That's part of it, but I don't, and John, you put the POCD, the consistency in there, right?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. It should be, if you sort it by date, it came
Yeah.
in today, so it'll be dated today.
Okay.
Commissioner Braun, are you?
Yeah, so,
Go ahead. When you're
okay,
ready.
so we spoke quite a bit about this last time. I will keep my comments only what's necessary today. And basically, I'll go through the criteria that we use when we adopt zoning regulations, which I believe is the same criteria when we adopt a map change. So is the proposal consistent with the plan of conservation and development? I also emailed you a memo, which I'm going to pass down to be filed. That was emailed. I just have one copy, but it's, I recited portions of that last time we were here. So basically for tonight, to shorten my presentation, I'm going to adopt and incorporate everything I said on June 2nd into the support for this regulation today, in case I miss anything tonight. But this proposed new text amendment to our regulations and the associated map are consistent with the plan of conservation and development. They do lead to improvements in safety by enabling some sort of minimal parking to be required in this 4% zone. Actually, let me explain the map first. Last time I explained somewhat of it. I also attached our technical information about what the technical means were of coming up with the zone. We first calculated what the size of Fairfield is, and we put labeling on this updated version, which is dated today. So the town area is 30.54 square miles. The parcel area is 0.93 square miles, which is well under 4% of the town. The road and right-of-way area is 0.26 square miles, which is, we decided to incorporate that. It's very unusual to have a zone created where you have a maximum amount it can be as a percentage of the town. I don't know if it's ever been done before or been restricted before by any state law. So that was an interesting concept that we had to come up with what we thought was 4% of the town without any guidance from the state legislature. All they said was you can have a zone that's 4% of the town and another zone that's 4% of the town into which you can require minimal parking under the new housing law, Public Act 25-1, which was enacted from HB 802 in November of 2025. So we first came up with an area we thought was high priority, very important, an area that could be targeted for less than necessary parking, less than appropriate parking, because it is near transit. So we located the 3 transit areas, the Metro Center, the downtown train station, and the Southport train station. And we looked within about a half a mile of each one, which is generally considered transit. And we thought the downtown center and Southport were critically important that we preserve as much as we can of those areas. We put forth something from a cell phone app in March, which was not as exact as this. And also we couldn't carve out areas that don't need to be protected. Then we came up with a zone from the parcel up by using QGIS software. And the source and methods is described on my source and methods sheets. You have 3 pages in this handout. One is a color copy of the map. One is the regulation text amendment, and one is a memo dated June 9th, which has technical information on data sources and methods in our development of this CPMD #1, which is again Fairfield Center, Reap Road, Southport. We discussed this quite a bit last week, so again, I incorporated those comments into this. But we consider this to be the most critically important area. We came up with just one zone. When we first discussed this after we submitted our March cell phone app, we had 2 circles on there, which were not, they were equal to about 4%, but they included a lot of areas that didn't have to be included. For example, the town hall campus or the schools or the highway. So we excluded those this time around, and we were able to get a bigger footprint. So now we have a footprint of just under 4% of the town, which incorporates pretty much of the areas we thought was hyper critical to preserve parking in. And that is basically most of the Post Road, south and north of the Post Road, all the way down Reef Road. Also most of Southport. When we decided, now when we did the parcel up analysis, that did not include interior roads because those are not part of parcels. We decided we should include the interior roads because, again, the state has not given us guidance. So we added those in and therefore we had to carve out a little piece of Southport to make up for that. Our total area is under 4%, just under 4% of the town's area. So this is the first of what I hope will be 2 parking preservation zones. And I'm going to leave it to Commissioner Monahan to supplement what I said. We're talking about the map now, not the specific regulation text amendment.
Yeah, and
Deferring.
I'm going to let Commissioner Monahan add any details about how we picked this area because she's a real estate specialist.
Thank you, Commissioner Monahan.
And we also took into consideration, overflow parking potential kind of downtown and other areas that are already, high pressure, other areas that, there have been, traffic accidents, pedestrian incidents, where there are, school zones and, a lot of kind of density already. And, knowing that Mark Barnhart, Economic Development Council has also kind of weighed in and said they agree, they believe that, there's more harm in not picking these zones than picking these zones. We're happy with the outcome of what we decided.
And so that brings me to the text amendment, which basically is exactly what Ms. Harrigan put together. All I did was, I didn't change the first section at all. I sent a red line out earlier, but all we did was identify the name of Conservation Parking Mitigation District number 1 as being what we entitled it, Fairfield Center, Reef Road, Southport, 6/9/2026 to prevent any confusion. And it reads as follows then. This is a new section. Well, actually, I think, I don't remember if this was put in what we adopted before already or not.
Yeah, if we could just, I think the numerical section number should be 25.14.
Yeah, so this is 25.14.
Yeah.
Correct. Is that something that we already adopted when we made our parking regulation changes?
No, this would be a new section.
That was left off. Okay.
Correct.
So
This
how
would be a new section at
so how it's
the
worded
end
is-
of the chapter,
Okay,
the section.
It says basically, and this is Ms. Harrigan's language up front, conservation parking mitigation districts are permitted per Public Act 25-1 and are established to address areas of town where unique traffic, safety, infrastructure, and built environment constraints require more rigorous evidence-based evaluation of parking demand and supply. And 25.14.1 applicability. The provisions of this section shall apply to all properties located within the CPMD areas as shown on the maps within Appendix XXX of these regulations. These areas are generally described as, and then we only have one. So number 1 is CPMD number 1, Fairfield Center, Reef Road, Southport, dated 6/9/26. Number 2, CPMD number 2 says TBD, to be determined. That's kind of a placeholder. 25.14.2 general requirements. Notwithstanding any other provisions of these regulations, all developments within these 2 CPMD districts with less than 17 residential units shall provide the parking as required in section 25.4.1.L for those developments with 17 or more units. And so I have to clarify that. So that's how it's worded, just to explain. Since Public Act 25-1 was passed in November, another Public Act, I don't know the number, was passed where the 15 units was increased to 16 units. So right now, throughout town, throughout our state, no zoning board can require parking for up to 16 units as opposed to up to 15 units, which is what the Public Act has. That new law has just been passed out of the legislature, and I believe the governor either signed it or didn't veto it. So that is part of our housing law now, that has modified the housing law to fill in sort of a gap in the law where 16 was left orphaned. So now up to 16 units throughout town, we cannot require parking unless it is in one of these 2 4% parking preservation zones. I also made a slight typo correction to what we had before in here in the first draft that Ms. Harrigan gave us. I think it left out the .1 before the before the L, but that's a minor point. So it's referring to 25.4.1.L, which is what we are allowed to do for 17 and over numbers of units. We are allowed to require 1 parking space per single bedroom unit, 2 parking spaces per 2 or more bedroom units. And the applicant is allowed to provide a parking study, which could provide for less, and we're supposed to pick the lesser of all of that. However, we're also guided by public health and safety. So if there's a public health and safety law, then we can use our some discretion. And another reason this is important to adopt tonight is the parking, I'll call it the 16 unit parking ban goes into effect on July 1st, as well as another portion of the housing law that was passed in November, which is the commercial to residential conversion summary with slight summary review, which does not allow a public hearing or any discretion by us. We, in our regulations, were allowed to confine that to mixed use. So right now, on July 1st, according to the state law in conjunction with our regulations, anyone can do a conversion of any commercial property to a mixed-use property, which is retail or restaurant below and residential above. And I believe, and I'm going to ask Ms. Harrigan to clarify this, I believe the automatic, almost as of right conversion is for up to a 9-plex, right? Oh, it's anything.
No, it's,
It's a 9-plex.
no, I think it's, through you, Mr. Chair, if I could just clarify.
Yeah.
So when we updated our design business district regulations, what we chose between was transit middle housing in all of our commercial or mixed use districts, or to allow mixed use developments by summary review. So we chose the mixed use option within all of our districts that are either commercial or mixed use. The commercial to residential conversion is something entirely different. So that has to be a building that is either 100% vacant or more than 50% vacant for a period of over a year.
Except that the law is not, this is something we have to talk to our town attorney about. It really, is that really germane to what we're talking about tonight?
Yeah, can we?
I just believe the housing law does not confine it to being abandoned, but that's kind of a tangent, okay? For right now, we are faced with the housing law conversion summary review, which does go into effect on July 1st, and the so-called 16-unit parking ban, which goes into effect on July 1st. So that's why it's important to pass this now. The idiosyncrasies of what we allow and what we don't, certainly multifamily would be allowed on a conversion or by our own town regulations, okay? Our own town regulations are already in effect, but the conversion by the state law goes into effect on July 1st. So
we've already adopted it.
Yeah, we adopted it, but the state law might be, if the state law is different, then we have to follow the state law. So that's kind of an open question to be discussed. But for right now, we have to be concerned that the parking restriction will go into effect on July.
It's not a restriction. It is, we're not allowed to require a parking ratio for under 16, development with under 16 units. That does not mean a developer can't provide those parking spaces.
Of course, no one's stopping.
I just want to clarify.
So we felt this preserves our ability to require minimal parking. And again, the developer also has the right, everything will take place as if it was 17 or more, which means the developer has the right to submit a parking study. And that could show less than what the 1 space per 1 bedroom or 2 spaces per 2 and more bedrooms. So that's basically what I have to say after incorporating everything I said last week. So as not to belabor too many details, which we're pretty familiar with right now. And I'm available for any questions if anybody has any, so.
Thank you, Commissioner Braun. Commissioner Monahan, anything further?
Nope. Thank you, Commissioner Braun.
Other comments from the commission? Commissioner Levy?
Yeah, I have a question through you to Ms. Harrigan.
Go ahead. Ms. Harrigan.
In terms of these 16, let's say 16 unit developments, would they be permitted only in areas that currently allow for, such developments, or is this as of right anywhere in town? Is it pretty much just, this would apply in our design business districts and perhaps C zones, which allow multifamily, or
This doesn't revise our current zoning.
so?
So, right now, I would say that the up to 16 unit provision, without us being able to mandate parking, the greatest percentage of land area is our single family residential zones that this applies to right now, right? So the statute is very broad. It says we cannot regulate up to 16 units. That means every single, only 5% of our land area is zoned commercial. The rest of it is predominantly 100% residential, whether it's a DRD overlay or whether it's a single family residential neighborhood, everything from AAA down to, as of right, Residence B, which is our duplex zone, to our Residence C, which is up to 4 units. So in any of those residential districts, we cannot mandate a parking requirement. I don't believe that it's going to be problematic where contractors are going to start building without a parking allocation for those developments, only within our current commercially zoned districts and our mixed use districts. And if somebody wanted to apply a design residence district, can you build more than 4 units right now in the town of Fairfield?
I mean, as a practical matter, in a AAA zone, basically our current regulations would not allow 16 unit development. So therefore, we don't have to worry about limiting parking in, let's say, a AAA zone, or not. I mean, it's not gonna, unless we change our zoning regulations, it's not gonna apply there.
That's correct. I just don't believe that a contractor's gonna build a luxury home in a AAA district without any parking. It's not likely.
Oh, so you're saying even with a single family, you're right, a single family is less than 16.
Correct.
So somebody could build a house and have no parking.
Correct.
Well, more likely it would be a DRD overlay, which they could then build, I think, 12 per acre in the AAA zone if they can compile 30 acres together, right?
Correct.
So that could potentially not have enough, but I would imagine that would be a luxury and they would not get away with it. But downtown is,
Many parcels of that size left, really.
well, you'd have to consolidate, some, but the downtown area, again, is a concern because it already has less parking. And when Mr. Barnhart came last time, our economic development director, he basically explained to us that the Metro Center parking lot, which we were just talking about tonight, was mostly built because we needed more parking. We want to put a parking garage downtown. So there are parking problems downtown. Yeah, he absolutely said that. He also said there is more reason to do this than not to do this with this district in the downtown area. So the biggest fear we had, Commissioner Monahan and I had, was of starving the local businesses of patronage because of inadequate parking. And because it is close to transit, that might be an area that could be ripe for a developer not providing enough parking. And it hasn't happened yet, but then again, our regulations just changed recently and the law is changing. So the past will not necessarily predict the future. And Mr. Barnhart said that also. So in the absence of a parking study, which is going to be worked on, that will take a year to do, Mr. Barnhart told us last time. We need to do this now. And this does not stop us from picking the other zone, which we really need to do. We focused on this one because we thought this was the very top priority to protect our downtown center, Southport area, and Reef Road, which seems to be a ripe area for development. But yeah, the whole, honestly, the law, it's unfortunate the law covers the whole town. So the next area needs to be picked, and sooner the better. So I leave that open to the commission to pick the next 4% area as soon as possible.
Commissioner Monahan?
I think Commissioner Randolph had his hand up first.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see that. Commissioner Randolph, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I don't think there's anything wrong with creating a parking mitigation district, but what I'm seeing here it seems to be rushed. I look at this map, it looks like a Texas congressional map. I can't see how any reasonable person would consider this to be one zone because it's not contiguous. So it's my concern is not the proposal of the mitigation district, but it may be supported when it may be appropriate when supported by town policy, objective planning, and a clear public purpose. But this doesn't show any of those things. The district lacks a demonstrated planning basis, and it's not supported by the POCD.
It is absolutely
Wait,
supported by the
hang on,
POCD.
Commissioner Braun. Go ahead.
It's not supported by the POCD. It doesn't correspond to any zoning districts, overlay districts, adopted planning studies, parking management plans, or any established policy framework. There's, as Commissioner Braun said, there's no parking utilization study that's been conducted, no demand analysis, no transportation study, no economic development. And I think there's a mischaracterization of what Mr. Barnhart said. He said that this wouldn't make a difference. He didn't say it's necessary. And there's no planning documents that have been presented to support these boundaries. This is based upon really quack surveys that were put together. I'm sorry. Can you block someone, please? Because I saw
Keep going,
some.
Commissioner.
Okay. All right. By surveys that were put together, that were sent out to Facebook groups that had leading questions. There were anecdotal observations, and they were no substitute for objective planning analysis. There's no clear basis why certain properties were included. I have seen no basis. It looks like somebody just arbitrarily drew these boundaries, and it's not consistent with the POCD, which is required by state statute 8.3, which requires the commission to consider the POCD whenever we adopt anything. And the POCD talks about walkability, mixed-use development, transit-oriented development, housing opportunities, and reduce reliance on off-street parking, which this would encourage. There's no analysis that's been submitted. And so this is not consistent with the POCD. And let me address a couple of things that were in here. It says goal 2, quality residential areas that include historic districts will continue to be predominant land use in the community. I don't see how additional parking lots support historic districts. That's what this ordinance is going to require, is additional off-street parking. Goal number 4 that Commissioner Braun cites: high quality commercial areas will be visually attractive and support additional vibrant economic activity. I look at Bob's parking lot. I don't think that's visually attractive. I think that that's the opposite. She cites goal 6: multimodal streets are priority, such that residents will have safe and convenient spaces where they can walk and bike. It's proven that street parking slows traffic down and is safer rather than stroads, which is what this encourages. So this is what's being encouraged is the antithesis of goals 2, 4, and 6 that Commissioner Braun has submitted. And so we need to reflect responsible planning for future conditions. This has been hastily prepared. I disagree with the process. It doesn't serve the general health and safety of the town. And it will create additional incentives to drive and create additional traffic congestion. I don't oppose traffic mitigation districts. I oppose this one, which is not been thoughtfully prepared.
Okay, so we put about
Commissioner Braun.
that did anything about this. We're facing a deadline right now. So anybody could have done it. We did it. We did it in the area that we know has parking problems. We hear it all the time. We hear it from people that come to this commission. We got dozens of letters which backed up the results of that online survey. Okay, the vast majority of people said, please preserve the downtown center as opposed to my own neighborhood. That's what they said. And it matches pretty much the same percent. So yeah, it does. I just submitted a memo on the POCD. It is absolutely consistent. We have a commercial corridor. We need to preserve it. That's where development will take place. We need to preserve parking to enable that commercial development to survive. And when you talk about Bob's, that's not residential. This is enabling us to provide minimal parking for residential development. Obviously, the commercial will remain. The housing law does not affect the commercial parking. It affects the residential parking. So when we now start allowing commercial to mixed use conversions and multifamily in random places. The biggest issue we felt we had was the center business district. And that's what people told us, and that is consistent with the POCD. It also happens to tie in with traffic and safety data. Those are also areas of a large amount of crashes, which is also mentioned in the POCD.
Commissioner Monahan?
You're muted.
Mr. Barnhart also agreed that there is a parking problem now downtown already. It would be a shame not to use the law that the governor has given us to protect our already congested downtown. We do not have enough studies. We do not have enough data, but seemingly there's a lot of information about the number of cars that pass through certain areas of town in engineering reports, et cetera, that are in town that we do not have access to. The specter of a parking garage also hangs over our head, and the ramifications of that. People in town do not want our center to look like a large city, although some people do. And no one knows what the eventual cumulative effects of this housing bill will be on our downtown. We do not have a downtown that is similar to any other town in the state, where the 95, the train, the post road Route 1 being a state road, all almost converge within, an eighth of a mile. And so dense residential development and the impact of that, and the intersecting housing law. The only way to protect against that currently is to say we need to have, for new residential development, one spot for one apartment, two for two or more. So to not agree with that, I'd just like to understand. I mean, we asked the question, CT parking reform study, how many of these lots that you're showing us are actually owned by commercial businesses and how many are owned by the town? No one gave us that information. How many off-street parking spots do we currently have in town? No one gave us that information. No one talked to us about studies, questionnaires of local businesses talking about the impact of already a lot of traffic downtown. I know we want to try to reduce the amount, or some on this commission want to reduce our reliance on cars. We want to reduce our reliance on traffic downtown. We just talked tonight about 1,700 new residents who may be moving into the town in the current years, who may not have any retail near their apartments, over near the new train station. And where will they come for dinners? Where will they come for community theaters, events, et cetera? They will come downtown. And what? They will have 686 times 2. They'll have another 1,700 cars with them. So where are they all going to park? They're not taking a trolley. They're not taking their bikes. It rains, sleets, and snows almost 150, 160 days a year here, according to the Weather Channel. So we need to protect our downtown. We need to do it for our seniors. We need to do it for our student populations. We need to do it for our elderly. We need to do it for the disabled. We need to do it for current residents. There's a lot of talk about future residents. We need to do this for the current residents. That's what they're asking for, and that's why we were elected.
So just to make one other,
Go ahead.
I just want to make one other point. As far as the gerrymandered, yeah, well, the state law that was passed didn't say you couldn't gerrymander it. We drew an outline along the areas that we felt were most likely to be developed and most likely to have a problem with congestion. And reducing congestion is a goal of the POCD, as well as our state law when we pass new regulations, as well as safety and quality of life. And that's what this will achieve. As far as whether this would be approved, the housing law says we're supposed to submit it to the state, but it doesn't say they have approval authority. So it remains to be seen. We need to do this now, and we need to create another one, okay? And maybe the traffic study will come down in a year and say, oh, we have ample parking. All I heard was at least half the parking is privately owned. And if it's privately owned, you can't make someone provide public use of your private lot. There's all kinds of issues involved. There's liability issues. And even if you did, you'd have to make that be satisfactory, you'd have to have a permanent easement or a covenant on the land record, so it would be permanent if you're gonna allow the development that relies on private lots. So that's all in the future. That hasn't happened. We need to do this now. And there's adequate information that we have a parking problem that's been going on for at least 25 years. That's why we created the train station for the parking lot. That's one big reason why we did.
Other comments from the commission?
May I add one more thing?
Go ahead.
This was very pragmatic. How we arrived at these, and it is contiguous. It is contiguous. That was one of the criteria. It's an adjoining 4%. If you look at which lots we included, which lots we excluded, it was very pragmatic, and they're written out, listed out exactly how we arrived at them. So to say it was rushed, to say this was not rushed, this was weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks of us discussing this and planning it out, and then actually using QGIS technology and breaking it down parcel by parcel by parcel.
I have one question for Ms. Harrigan about the appendix. It says appendix XXS. Is that like a placeholder number?
Yes, of course.
So that can be in here?
Yeah. So I think that there's another appendix. I think there are two other appendices that we need to, so I think this is gonna be it.
In terms of drafting, because
This would be appendix 3, for example, or A, B, or C, whichever one. We just need to put it in the back end of the other appendices.
So this regulation is pretty much what you had written. I modified it with the name of it, and pretty much that's about it. A couple of minor details. Is this what you consider adequate in terms of how it would be scribed, assuming is in favor of this?
This is what other municipalities are, this is how they're handling it.
Thank you.
Commissioner Delgado.
I guess one question I have is whether this map as articulated in what's been passed out today, there's another version that also shows the underlying zones.
You can get the layered backup. There's, I can get that for you. If somebody wants to study this later, they can look at it, but this is accurate in terms of, it was built up, parcel up. The methodology was put on that explanation page. And those are what the percentages are. Those are what the acreage is, including the interior roads.
The reason why I ask is because by my estimation, looking at like the parcel viewer online, a lot of this is potentially some AA, R3, like these are single family zones. So it's not that, like I wouldn't want to create something for the sake of trying to hit 4%, as opposed to making sure we're actually like imposing this in multifamily districts. So much of this appears to be single family. It feels like we're adding it solely to maximize the size as opposed to maximize the effectiveness.
Well, and what's wrong with that? We have parking standards now, this actually reduces it probably from what we normally would require in any of those zones, maybe not the downtown zone, but because you were only allowed, even with this 4% district, which is actually under 4%, we still can only require 1 space per single bedroom, 2 spaces for anything bigger than that. And subject to a parking study, which we have to take the lesser of. So if somebody comes in with a parking study that says, we don't need even that much, we're supposed to go with that, unless there's some kind of proven health or safety issue from not providing enough parking.
Remember, we're talking about single family zones
Well,
and
most of this is
pretty substantial size. We're not,
Yeah.
like, these aren't Bs or Cs. These are R3, A, potentially AA. So like they're at a size where it feels even less likely that someone would consider
Well, most of this
building
is,
something without parking.
most of
And
this
we're only
is along the
talking about
post road.
families.
We wanted to include the post road and as much of the beach as we could, as well as Southport. And we have some parts north of, a little bit north of I-95.
Right, like a lot of what's above 95 is already a single family zone. That's my point.
Commissioner Levy.
Yeah, I'd like to study this further. Well, not necessarily, a little bit on the fence. I mean, this to me, the statute says 2 zones. I mean, I'm looking at this, this looks like 3 or 4 zones. The solution might be to, and I recognize allegedly it's contiguous, but it breaks down into like 4 separate sections. what I'd like to see is one that focuses more on particular zoning districts where we are at risk. There is parking provided, and the areas that we don't have to worry about, it doesn't mean you have to fill up the 4%. Let's focus on the important areas and not create something that might get rejected because it's not 2 zones, it's 4 zones already. I'd like to look at it further.
Commissioner Monahan.
It's one zone and it's contiguous to include those parcels most at risk. So to expand one zone out farther we'll look at our circle again, doesn't make any sense because the impact that's the greatest is not that way. It's more horizontal than it is circular. So we looked at zone to zone to zone. It is contiguous. It is one zone. It may encompass various, that's the beauty of the map. It includes several areas that are at high risk, and we're not even at 8%. We're not even at 4%. So that is one zone, less than 4%, that encompasses the most important lots in town that we should all be focused on. So we carved out schools, churches, any municipal lot that already exists. We were very, very careful in our analysis, lot to lot to lot. And we were thrilled when we saw that it was still less than 4%, and we have another 4% to go.
Commissioner Randolph. I'm sorry, Commissioner.
Yeah. So did somebody want to go first?
Go ahead.
Okay, so I know you're using the word contiguous, but my understanding of contiguous is things that are touching, and I see things crossing the highway. So this it would struggle to meet the definition of contiguous. I'm not opposed to a map, but this map excludes B zones, which I think are mostly at risk. It excludes the beach, where we know we have parking. It doesn't seem to overlay to the downtown commercial district properly, and it includes, as Commissioner Delgado points out, a lot of areas that has no risk of parking issues, single family homes. So I'm not objecting to the concept, I'm objecting to this map. It just doesn't seem to follow logical planning principles. And I think it was Commissioner Levy who said, perhaps we could create a map that corresponds to the zoning districts. That would be a logical planning principle. This corresponds to people's intuition, which is not a logical planning principle unless it's backed up by a study. So there's been no study to back up this principle, and it's at risk to litigation. I don't know who would sue us, but if something like this were passed, we have no planning basis to implement a map change, which is required by state law. A map change and a text amendment have to be substantiated by specific studies or the POCD. And I'm looking at the map right now. You couldn't only describe this as gerrymandered. This gerrymandered map doesn't have a logical planning basis to it. If we can get a logical planning basis to the map, I'm behind it, but this one doesn't have a logical planning basis to it.
Commissioner Capozzi.
I've worked in media since I was 16 years old, and one of the things that I've experienced firsthand is the irresponsible proliferation of one-sided information. And I was kind of both shocked and disheartened to watch this process unfold with the town, because there was this real sky is falling mentality that if we don't protect the commercial sector of downtown Fairfield, come this arbitrary deadline of July 1st, which actually doesn't exist because we've already implemented these regulations consistent with the statute, then the town of Fairfield as we know it on July 1st, 2026 would self-destruct and crater into itself because there would be no parking spaces at all available. That was the message. And there were commissioners who went on radio without any other viewpoint, in violation of the standards of this commission. We're citing a study that was conducted unofficially by, I think, an intelligent and very well-meaning citizen of this town, but saying things like everyone said. The population of the town of Fairfield is 66,262. There were under 600 respondents to that poll. That is not everyone. That is 600 people who were incited by a Facebook group and one-sided slanted media with no official studies done. Mr. Barnhart, who's an incredibly accomplished and intelligent member of this community, and we're very fortunate to have him on the town, his words were, you can pass this, and I'm paraphrasing somewhat, but the spirit of what he said was, passing this the mitigation district in downtown Fairfield is not going, in his opinion, to have an impact one way or the other. And he said, in a pros and cons list, there are more reasons to do it than not to do it. But that doesn't underscore the fact that he said doing this in the commercial sector of downtown Fairfield is not going to have an impact one way or the other. And in that that's what he said, Commissioner Monahan. That is what he said. You can review the record and review the tape. He also identified almost 2,000 parking spaces that were public parking spaces in downtown Fairfield. And his words were, we have a parking management problem, not an actual parking problem. And he identified the fact that we are undersigned, meaning we don't have signs directing people to available parking. I grew up in this town since 1981. I can tell you, I do not see a difference in the way that parking functions on a Friday night as it did when I was a third grader in 1988 trying to go to the movie theater with my family than it does today. I don't see a very vast difference. The population increase of this town does not support this hysteria. So am I in favor of voting for this just because it's something to do and it seems like it will assuage some of this unnecessary hysteria that has been unnecessarily incited about this idea that doesn't even rationally apply to this town based on the economics, the available land, and the fact that there really are no available commercial spaces in and around the downtown Fairfield area, and that's a commercial zone. I think the town planners very handily and logically identified the Fairfield Beach area as a place where this could be a problem because that is the area that Fairfield University students want to rent housing. And there is an argument to be made for a developer to say, there's not a lot of land here and I can put a 15-unit rental for university students and I can do it without parking because they're gonna get a ride from their friends. I think that's problematic. That's the area that the town identified as most vulnerable to something like this being problematic. I don't believe the 5% commercial area of this town that is, there are really no vacancies. Things do not languish, commercial buildings do not languish with unrented spaces. I don't believe that this area is vulnerable to the kind of, and Mr. Barnhart agrees that it's not really vulnerable to the kind of hysterical town collapsing in and on itself that has been purported. All of that said, if it's going to make people happy and it's not going to make a difference one way or the other for the town of Fairfield, but what I really take issue with is this sort of this fear mongering and this mass hysteria that's been incited by irresponsible use of social media and media at the hands of people who should know better. And that's all I have to say.
Commissioner Braun.
Yeah, it is not a violation to speak on the radio. We have First Amendment rights and I intend to use mine.
It's a violation.
Wait,
to-
hang
Excuse
on,
me,
hang
I'm
on.
speaking. I'm speaking.
Excuse me, everyone,
Through
lower
you,
your
Mr.
voices.
Chairman,
Wait, hang on.
I have the floor and I intend to speak,
You were
okay?
speaking, go ahead, keep going.
Without being interrupted, because I
All right.
interrupt him.
Let's, hold on a second, because the way this entire commission debates is sometimes not the way we should be
Right.
debating. This
I
is
don't
not a
interrupt
back,
people.
this is
Maybe
not
you,
a
but
back
not
and
me.
forth.
Sorry.
Keep going. Keep going.
There is a mischaracterization of many things, okay? The people have come before us and they have spoken to us. I don't call our constituents hysterical. They shop in town, they grew up in town, I grew up in town. People drive downtown to go to the restaurants and the shops. It's not my fault no study was done. We've been trying to get this done for 6 months, okay? Where's the rest of the commission? Anybody could propose any zone they wanted. No one did it. We did the work, we spent the time, we made our judgment call that these are the areas that are most likely to be developed with potentially inadequate parking, because they're within a half a mile of the train station. And we carved out the areas that we don't have to worry about. That's why it looks gerrymandered. It is one contiguous area. We carved out areas that weren't needed. So yeah, there is a deadline, which is July 1st. After July 1st, if we don't preserve at least one zone, then somebody could develop it and not provide any parking or provide inadequate parking. And there's nothing we can do about it. So that is the deadline. That's not hysteria. That is a fact. And I don't think our commission should be waiting for a future traffic study, which might take over a year once they get the funding to figure it out. We need to do this now. It's not my fault that the law was passed, but it was passed. And I don't know why no one else on this commission is coming up with a second zone. We need 2 zones. Let's fill up the rest of the beach. Let's do what needs to be done. Where is everybody? Why isn't anyone doing this? This law, the state legislature in their public policy said, we need to give towns a little bit of wiggle room to preserve what parking they need to. That's important because it could be too congested or it could be too likely to be developed with inadequate parking. That's why that provision's in there. It's a tool that was given to us. We need to use the tool. And what I'm hearing now is we don't want to use the tool. Do a study. I can't do a study. I don't have the capability of doing a study. Somebody should do a study, but in the meantime, we need to protect this so it doesn't happen. So we don't start getting applications in.
Commissioner
Mr. Chairman, I just want to, I will agree to disagree, with Commissioner Braun. One thing I take issue with, I did not say that townspeople were hysterical. That is not what I said. I would never say that as a human being. I said they were incited to hysteria by irresponsible use of media. That is what I said.
i.e. they were
All right,
hysterical.
we're not going to keep going back and forth in the debate like this. It's not a tit for tat. Every time someone speaks, the other person doesn't get to just directly go back and forth. That's not how we are going to have debates. Commissioner Monahan.
Does everyone agree on this commission that we have a problem downtown with traffic and parking? Or is there no consensus on that? I think it's important that, we first agree. I mean, the CT parking reform study that was put out was a great map of parking lots owned by commercial businesses for their own use. Legally, they have the right to those lots. No one can use a lot at night. Someone slips and falls. It's their legal responsibility. So to say that there are a plethora of parking spots, there are not. There are also non-conforming buildings downtown that have no parking, that rely on street parking, that rely on their workers to use certain lots so that they can get to work, so that they can park. Not everybody takes the bus. So to say that we don't have a problem that's only going to be exacerbated in the coming years when the Umpqua Road development is finished, when the Circle Diner development is finished, when the Rite Aid complex is going to come forth in the coming weeks or months. We already got that one letter from DiNardo asking for a 5th floor so his residents can overlook the downtown. More and more and more and more and more cars. So to protect the existing spots that are there, we're not looking to create any additional spots. We're not looking to say, hey, let's create additional spots. We're just saying if someone wants to build, let them follow our existing rules, which is 1 spot or 2 spots or more. So we're not looking to, put anything radical out there. We're just looking to protect what we already have.
Everyone's had at least one chance to speak. I'll just say, I think the proposed zone is well intentioned. I actually don't have an issue as far as the contiguousness of it. I don't know. I mean, I think that's probably something that someone would have to challenge, and I think it's generally okay from that perspective. I think it's rooted in a concern that eliminating residential parking mandates could create parking pressures that might harm our commercial corridors. But we all live here. We all value our downtown. We all want our downtown to flourish. And I think where some of us differ is our thinking in terms of what actually makes our downtown successful and what policies are most likely to help it thrive. I think most or much of what we love about our downtown was built before parking mandates existed. Many of the buildings that we love most either predate parking requirements or our most recent parking requirements prior to us adopting the regulations in March, or required variances because those parking standards would have prevented them from being built in the first place. And I think the places that make our downtown most special, which we've talked about, were not created with those previous parking regulations in mind. I think they were created in spite of our parking regulations. And I think we do have substantial parking resources. That's whether or not we have enough and whether some of it, we have enough that is public, whether or not we have enough that is on street or off street is another question. And I think that suggests to me that the real challenge is a parking management problem, which may include elements of parking supply issues in certain places. But I think that's also why Commissioner Randolph and I were strong advocates during the POCD process for calling for a comprehensive study of our parking needs and strategies for improving it, which I think should include a wide range of strategies, and supply and how we address supply being just one part of it. And I think the idea of these parking mitigation districts, I don't think it gets us to the conversation we should be having. I think it looks at a subset, which is the residential component. I think a lot of the reason we talk about the commercial district is because the question of whether or not we have enough parking in the right places, a lot of that comes down to the parking supporting our commercial uses. So I think it leaves the broader parking questions unresolved. I don't think it addresses utilization. It doesn't address wayfinding. It doesn't address shared parking. It doesn't address how we regulate the on-street parking we have. I've heard the argument that this proposal is needed to protect small businesses, and respectfully, I disagree with that. I think it focuses on just one side of the ledger, which is the possibility that some future residential development could place additional demand on nearby parking, but I think it ignores the other piece of that, which is that if new residential buildings are built, that's additional foot traffic for those businesses. I mean, the apartments that could be built above ground floor retail spaces are not only potential customers of those businesses, they are residents who could walk downstairs and go to the coffee shop or the restaurant or whatever businesses are nearby without having to get in their car and add to the traffic. So I think if our concern is the long-term impact and health of our small businesses, I think we can't ignore the parking issue, but I think we also, as part of that, can't ignore the value of introducing new people above those businesses that would support them. And so I think the on-street parking spaces, I mean, we need strategies to better regulate those. There are time limits, but we should figure out what we should be doing with those. We should figure out how we should be telling people where there's parking available, because one thing I know is there are a lot of folks who aren't aware of some of the parking lots that we have available to them for use. And yeah, I think in some cases we may need to look at supply, but I'm not sure where those places are. And I don't think it's necessarily the entirety of our commercial district as this district suggests. So I have no issue with, I think the intent behind it makes sense. I have no issue with the contiguity of it, but I can't support this as proposed for the reasons I just articulated. I don't think we've delayed having a parking study. I think a number of us are in favor of that. And there are a lot of priorities that we have before us. And I suspect most folks on most of this commission, if not all of it, would support initiating that parking study. And so I think we should do that and see what it says, not just about the residential component of this, but really taking a more comprehensive look at how we should be managing our parking. Go ahead, Commissioner Monahan.
So what I think you just said is that you believe that more residents over businesses downtown will help our businesses grow, our commercial base grow more downtown, and protecting the traffic, protecting the parking spots on the streets for the current residents of town. So you're looking at future residents. We're looking at current residents who are coming into the downtown, a very, very small area of our town, very small area, very limited. So I just want to make sure that I understand, is that accurate?
I think I made my position pretty clear.
So you believe that future
We're not
residents
gonna, this is not
above
an
buildings,
imposition. Once again, this is not.
it's
excuse me,
important in terms
excuse
of
me,
why
this
the
is not
commissioner.
how- We
Okay.
don't, the commissioners, this is not commissioner questioning each other time. I said, I've been pretty clear about that and pretty consistent about this, meeting after meeting after meeting. This is not how we do it. I've made my position pretty clear without the need for follow-up questions.
Because when I asked you at the beginning,
made my
when you wanted
position
to
clear.
discuss this, you said, we're not doing that
Mhm.
about the 8%. And now we're coming to a vote. And I know where you're coming from. I yield.
Any other comments? Okay. The motion, there's a motion on the table to adopt the regulation and associated maps. All those in favor of the motion to approve those two items, raise your hand. Thank you. All those opposed? Okay, the motion fails 4-3. Motion fails 4-3. We are at time, Attorney Russo, so I apologize to, and Attorney Green, I'm sorry. So we will not be able to get to public hearing, but Attorney Green, I think next up was you had started to speak, but had only just been hired by your client and had not had time to fully go through the application. At this point, I'm guessing you're fully up to speed. How long, when we get to you next, do you anticipate needing?
We need an extension. We're good.
You'll-
We have till 7/2, right? We have the next meeting. I think we have till July 2nd, if I recall. Okay.
I believe that Attorney Russo has time for the next meeting, so this could be
carried over.
I'm gonna try to see if I can get coverage for.
So not at the next meeting, you're not available.
Me personally, no.
With TBD, you may have someone else
I
to.
could, I could ask Attorney Rizzo if you.
So I guess just stay in contact with Ms. Harrigan about availability and we can schedule based on that.
Thank you.
All right. Apologies for not being able to.
There's no Nick game tonight, it's okay. There's no Nick game tonight, it's okay.
All right, so we will continue that public hearing until the next agenda and.